and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hi.
Ben Reeves.
Hello.
Kimberly Wallace.
I'm back again.
Yeah, not
2 weeks
stop.
in a row. Whoa.
Perfect, because we have so many games to cover, and you've been playing at least one of them, which is Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Yes.
That's what we're kicking the show off with.
We're going right into it.
Well, not quite yet. We still have more to plug beyond that. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. After that, confusingly, we also have a quick interview with some of the people who worked on Shadow of the Tomb Raider coming right after that discussion, so enjoy that. And then after that, it's the old Game Informer Show classic. This is our staple. This is our custom. This is our tradition. It's time to gather around the fire and let Papa Matt Miller come in here and talk about Destiny with Destiny 2 Forsaken, which we haven't had yet because he was out of the office during that cover story.
That's true.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we let him do it every couple of months just to get it off his chest. And
he's an eloquent man, and I can't wait to hear his thoughts on Destiny 2 Forsaken with Serial Vasquez as well. And then we have some great community emails. Then back half of the show, we're talking about Spider-Man. With some of the folks at this table, at least. Maybe.
Spider time.
Yeah.
Guess who?
It's going to be fun. So everything through Act 1 of the game, which is about 4 hours-ish after a big political speech / rally. That is the cutoff point for this discussion. So if you don't want anything spoiled up to that point, maybe don't listen to the back half of the show, but that is the dividing line. And we got so many wonderful emails. Everyone was great sending emails to podcast@gameinformer.com. If you're not familiar with Game Club, you write into podcast@gameinformer.com covering this section of the game. We talk about it. We share thoughts from the community, and it always helps when people are super specific. And everyone did a great job of like, what about this one detail? And then they write just a couple lines about it compared to like the scatter shot of like 10 different topics. It's like, I don't know where to slip this email in the conversational flow.
It's very cool and somewhat disheartening to realize that our listeners are sometimes smarter than we are. It's like, what are we even doing here? Can we just like
I would
read
say
everything
most
they
of the
do?
time.
Yeah.
I'd say that's heartening.
I agree, maybe.
It's heartening, but also like, Kyle, why do we have jobs then?
Yeah, I guess
You losing
that's true.
sleep in it, Ray?
Yeah. When are people going to start reading the comments section instead of our stories?
Also on this episode, real quick plugs. NBA 2K19 came out same day as Spider-Man. Matt Burtz has been playing a lot of it. The review at this point should be up on the site. There are a couple things he still had to test out, so at the time of this recording, he wasn't able to make it down. But check out GameInformer.com for Matt Burtz's reviews and NBA 2K19. Kim, you going to play that one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
I've been playing it, actually.
Oh, maybe we can talk about it next week. Also, Joe Juba's favorite, even though he isn't here, is Valkyria Chronicles 4.
Yes.
The return to form. The reviews on the site, Joe Juba gave it a 9.0. This is
I
on,
love that, what I'm hearing about that. I love Valkyria.
yeah, it
It's
seems like a
back
good one.
to where I previewed a lot of the game, so it's like back to where people have been wanting something more in line with the first game, and it's totally that.
Yeah.
So they learned their lesson with that bad one.
With those
two bad ones.
Well, let's not put it on handheld and change things
They're
up.
like,
No, it just
let's not make bad ones anymore.
it's
The
a
weird
full
universe, yeah.
like it's the full adventure that you'd want from it. I
Good.
think putting it on the big screen definitely helps sell like the epic battles.
Yeah. It's a good old tactics game. So check out Joe's review.
I
I'd
like
imagine.
to use my brain.
What's that?
I like to use my brain.
Hell
That's
yeah,
why
I can
like
tell
them.
from the glasses.
Are
Very
you a-
smart today.
Are you someone who writes into podcast@gameinformer.com?
all the time.
The closing of Joe's review
Yeah.
here.
Here we go. Here we go.
I don't know if I need to impersonate Joe Jubal doing this.
Please
but I'm
do.
sure he'll
Oh,
listen
yeah.
to this.
Well, you have to.
Of all the people that can defend it, Joe Jubal would be number one. So I'll do it completely straight. He says, though familiar...
You can't! That's my impression of Ben Hansen impression of Joe.
Right, which I find very offensive, and I
Very
wish you wouldn't.
Dana
gosh.
Carvey-esque approach to impersonation.
So Joe says, you can't! No. Though familiar mechanics and units remain, excellent new features and conveniences transform the way you see the battlefield. Fantastic.
9 out of 10.
Yep. And the game comes out September 25th, 2018.
Nice.
In the future.
That's an early review.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Kim, when is TGS happening?
Oh, well, that's actually so not this week, but next.
And you're flying out to Japan, just you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what are you going to cover?
You'll
Do you
be
know
the
anything?
only person in Japan.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple of things I'm doing. You will see when it goes up on the site.
And there were some
Okay.
pre-TGS things this morning,
Yeah.
like Sekiro, a bad Kingdom Hearts trailer, and some other stuff, I think.
That's
They keep forgetting to add
perfect.
sound effects, Kim. I don't understand what's happening.
Look, that was a long time ago. We don't need to rekindle those old
Yeah, no,
wounds.
it's cool. I'm actually going to the Nier concert while I'm there, so I'm going to probably write that up while I'm doing it.
Oh,
I'm
cool. That'll be
excited.
fun.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Is Taro
and-
going to be there?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going
And
to
then-
transcribe the notes? Or
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna see how that experience was because I've never been to one of those shows, especially in like I've been to Kingdom Hearts concerts. Don't get me wrong, but with the Japanese audience, kind of be fun.
Yeah,
to see.
it'll be interesting
cool.
for sure.
Going to the Pokemon Cafe. Sorry, now I'm remembering all the stuff that I'm doing on
No,
there.
that sounds great.
So yeah, there you go.
The cafe.
I have made that. And as for the games, like I'm seeing a bunch of stuff by Bandai Namco, Capcom. You know, they're going to introduce more with Devil May Cry.
Oh,
another
exciting.
section of Resident Evil 2, which I'm super excited for.
Yeah.
So there's stuff going on.
Okay, so report back to the Game Informer show in the future.
Yes.
Okay,
Probably
perfect.
not next week, but the week after.
That sounds great. And then real quick on Nintendo's front as well, there's a new Labo set. Is it out now, Kyle, or coming out?
Oh, I think it might be out tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, soon, if not right now.
And this is the vehicles one.
Yeah, I just want to talk about it real quick because it
Yeah.
kind of surprised me. So what it is, it's the vehicle kit. It's the third one. And basically you make 3 vehicles. You make like an airplane controls, you make a steering wheel, and you make like submarine controls.
Okay.
And there's also stuff which is kind of cool. You make like a spray paint bottle so you can like paint all the parts of your vehicle. And they did that. It's cute because like you actually put a piece of cardboard inside the spray paint box, so you have to shake it up, and it actually sounds like spray paint.
It's good. Like
It's
even
cute.
the other
That's
Labo
good.
sets, like it has the little flippers to make it sound like you're using the reel
Yes,
on the fishing
yeah.
rod. Like the sound is very important for Labo, which is something I didn't
but
expect.
the building it is still fun, and the engineering is just always kind of blows my mind
Yeah.
how well these things work. But then the reason I think this is the best Labo kit of all 3, because the game that's included with it actually just gives you a big open world, like a big open area that you can explore, and there are little like tasks for you to do within that world, and you have a key that you basically, like, if you want to drive the car, you put the key in the steering wheel and you drive, and then if you want to start flying the plane, you take the key out and you put it in the what is that called, the yoke for the airplane.
Okay.
And you just your ship transforms into an airplane, and then same for the submarine. So you can just kind of explore this large area and like just do little tasks switching between vehicles as you want.
So it's so crazy because I think I was on last week in the podcast. Somebody wrote in saying, "You know what I want from Mario Kart? I want Mario Kart Forza Horizon." And this sounds like that.
I thought of that question actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say this is the open world Mario Kart that you want, but it's like an open world that you can drive around and explore, and you have to like go to the gas station and gas up your car, and you have to like pull levers to like, you know, to gas up and stuff like that. It's cool.
Is it just like flying through rings and stuff? Or what are the-
I haven't done all the it's unique things. Like there was one out driving the car around. I have to find these cows and I have to take them back to corral. And then there's a section of there's like these balloons that you have to fly through to pop. And I haven't actually built the submarine yet, so I don't know what's going on underwater.
No one does on planet Earth. You know, we know less about underwater than the moon or whatever. But
That sounds right.
so it's the best Labo thing.
It's from what I've played, it is my favorite of the 3. Yeah.
Wow.
Is building the cardboard still the best part?
Yeah, I mean that's still super fun. Like that's still like sort of the sort of Lego style
Right.
kind of creation.
I want
part
them to
of it
come
is
out with a
fun.
package of things where you're building stuff that I actually want to like have. Like that looks cool
Yeah.
enough to keep, not
Yeah,
a steering
yeah.
wheel. I'm
Like
not
a
gonna put that on
loving
my
wife?
desk. Yeah,
The
can you?
piano's kind of cool looking, right?
I
piano?
guess, but Nintendo used to make things that weren't video games. So, like, is it beyond the pale to imagine they could release kits of like cardboard kits?
Just art.
Coffee tables? What do you
Art kits?
want? Something practical?
no.
You want to build like a cardboard Mario statue or something?
Yeah, stuff that's
Okay.
like not
Oh.
that you don't have a game to play. That's just like cool to look at.
Yeah, you're
I'd be
right.
okay with that. I wouldn't be upset about that.
Yeah, I would build that.
But yeah, it's tough, I think, to make the cardboard really look great.
Yeah.
It's like it's functional, and that's the thrill of it. So if you remove that functionability and just are using these cardboard pieces to craft art, I don't know. I'm sure they could do something elaborate and sweet looking if they really wanted to. But
Yeah, your move, Lego. That's all I'm saying.
exactly. Here we go. Shadow the Tomb Raider from Eidos Montreal. What a twist. Kimberly
and
Wallace,
Crystal Dynamics.
a little bit in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out about it in the interview coming up in a bit.
Yeah.
But what did you think of this game? Maybe review score out of the gate, because I was shocked when I saw it.
7.5.
7.5. That is the lowest for a Tomb
And
Raider game in a while.
here is my one word for it, because I was thinking about this.
One word.
I wanted to get a good one. Bananas.
Well, that's
That's a good
That's
word.
kind of a
It is
positive
bananas.
word, though.
It is crazy.
What? I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I thought I was going to guess underwhelming.
I finished the game and I just said, what did I just play? So it's like...
This makes me want to play it again.
Yeah, I went through a lot of ups and downs with it. So I started the game off and I was like, oh yeah, this is what I like about Tomb Raider, exploration. They added more challenge tombs. I love just collecting everything on that map because I'm I don't value my time, obviously. But it was just like everything, and it was cool because the game has these awesome set pieces, and those are the best. Like the adrenaline pumping, like I'm in the moment. You've seen some of the stuff in trailers with like the plane crash and all that. And
sure.
That's. But as I was going on, I was like, okay, so what are they going to do with her this time? Because my biggest thing is I've been so excited for this reboot since they've announced it. I've been playing all the games. I really thought Rise was a step up from the first game. Like
great.
It made me feel like, oh, what could they really do after Rise, right?
Yeah.
And so this feels like a step back and not a step forward in many ways.
Okay.
Even with what they're doing with the character, there's some interesting moments. Like there's so many little good moments littered in a lot of what the heck, I guess, is what
Fun what the heck, or just storytelling
like you have
faux pas?
Storytelling and faux pas. I think you have to suspend your disbelief. It's like they took a lot from the Uncharted playbook, which is fine. Like the climbing stuff they've improved on like that level, but I wouldn't say it's as good as Uncharted by any means. Okay, but they struggle with what to do with her and how to give an interesting story to her. And through this game, like they brought back Jonah, and Jonah helped her on their first exposition.
Yep.
It's probably like their relationship is the most interesting in the game. Now, granted, it's really the only one person that she really has a connection with and talks to. And I like some of that because you finally saw her put a friendship kind of ahead of other things.
Yeah.
But, like, here's the thing. The premise is crazy. I mean, she triggers, like, the Mayan apocalypse, first
We're
off.
starting out sprinting here. Yeah.
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 By picking up an old artifact, right?
Yes.
Like it's just like, okay, this thing is how
And
is this
so,
connected to
yeah, and
the
so
apocalypse?
it gets
Like-
great. It gets even better. But she has like all this guilt, and there's a lot of moments for her having like rage because she's just so consumed with like, I have to make this right.
Why did I trigger the apocalypse? Ah!
Yeah, exactly.
Or was it just sitting on a button for thousands of years? And it's like nobody touched this button.
Well, of course,
Those
like
crazy minds.
Yeah, and then of course you find out Trinity's connection, and you're going through all of that. But this game, like last game, we were in the icy regions and more like isolated. This one we're in like we start in Mexico, go to Peru. Like
Cool.
It is very vibrant compared to that, and the cities are crowded. And which I thought was really cool because I was like, oh my God, there's like side quests in these cities and stuff for me to do. And I got really excited at first. And then I played some of the side quests and I was like, woof.
Also, it just doesn't feel like a very livable real world because you walk around the city and everybody's very rigid. And
Yes.
like, you talk to somebody and it's kind of like
Exactly.
a standard camera shot. Nobody's moving.
Does it feel, because it is the Deus Ex team, does it feel a little bit like the hubs from that series? Does it remind you of that?
A little bit, but
Okay.
I feel like this game, I was excited because they were like, oh, we have the biggest, map we've ever had for, Petite Village, whatever. There's like 3 main areas you go to. And I remember I was like, there's no way. I got to a point in the game and I'm like, there's no way I'm done with this game yet but then it's like, nope, this is the point of no return. Like you can't fast travel after this. And so I found that for everything that I could explore, because I took my sweet time because I wanted to do all the challenge tombs and I really love that stuff. And even doing a bunch of the side quests. And a lot of side quests are fetch quests, and they don't really have interesting stories behind them. There's like maybe 1 or 2 I could think of that I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. But other than that.
Okay.
So like I said, this is a lot of mixed stuff. There's
It's a
good
jumbled
moments.
thing.
Yeah, there's good moments. And that's just like, how am I going to talk about this? Because there's good moments shuffled in everything. So at one point I paused the button because I was like, how much of the map do I still have? So, you see the unexplored area is faded out in fog.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, I have so much still to play. This is a huge map. And then I realized it was just an illusion because when I finally I could keep going and going and going, but I was in the final area at that point and I was not going anywhere else except for this one side. So it was weird because I thought I had a lot more to go on it than that. And
Yeah.
it was just disappointing because they really last game like made it, oh, we're giving you these big hubs, like we're making, there's so many improvements, and this is just meh.
Is it worth playing if you can like shut your brain off and like I don't care about the story?
Here's
I
the
just want to
thing.
see some fun,
That's why I said
action.
I still had fun with the game. I can't deny that I like those adrenaline pumping moments. I like solving a tough challenge to him. I think the loop is cool of like the progression of I'll get to that later. Of picking stuff up and crafting. Now she has costumes you can craft. Some are a little
risque, or what does man mean?
not risque, like wearing animal stuff and tribal things.
It doesn't really look
and
cool.
It doesn't.
Okay,
You
it's a
would
little
think.
Flintstone-y?
Yeah, but
Okay.
it goes. What I liked about the costumes is they can play into your strategy. So maybe will lessen your detection for stealth or give you extra points if you play stealth.
People will think you're a jaguar.
Yeah. But then what really upset me was the
comes
upgrade
Laura.
system is so blah. Like I don't like they did what they did last game where they had the 3 areas, but like I was opening stuff and I'm like, none of this makes a difference at all. Like I want to feel like I'm progressing in a game, and only like maybe 1 or 2 times can I think of that I opened a skill and I was like, wow, now that's really cool. And that one was like when I could shoot the confuse arrows, which would then like have the other guys shoot their teammates.
That's great.
So upgrade that first.
Yeah,
But
that seems a good way
here's
to go.
an overall with combat, I will say like the game does reward more of a stealth approach. Like there is trees to climb, places to hide. And I say this because I had fun with some of the stealth things that you can do. But then the stealth is not very good either,
Okay. Yeah.
Like I had one case where I jumped out and an enemy totally saw me, and I went and I meleeed him, and it was giving me points for a stealth kill, and I'm like, that is not a stealth kill.
Surprise!
And you can cheese it because there's times when enemies definitely saw me, and I was like, how am I not being detected right now?
So just all over the place.
It is. That's the thing. The game is all over the place, and I want to preface this as like, if you played the past ones, you will have fun. It's just there's just so much that you'll have a good moment, and then the next you'll be like, what the heck? Or you'll be like, that, not so great.
Well, Kyle, you've been playing it too. What do you guys think of it so far? How deep are you?
Well, I'm not too far into it. Do you know if you can skip cutscenes, Kim?
What?
Do you know?
Certain ones, yes.
Because like that is the point where I'm at in Tomb Raider. Like,
Holy cow! You're a story guy too.
I really think the first one is super strong.
Yeah.
Good story, good game. The second one did not do it for me. By the end of the game, I was like, I do not care what is happening. I just want to collect stuff and
Immortality.
explore. And then the beginning of this third one, it's so scattershot.
Oh
in the
yeah,
opening.
and the
like they try to do an in media res thing, and then it like but then your normal timeline, but then they repeat the in media res opening that they did, but like fast forward it, and it's like
only an hour into the game too. It's like, oh, you
Yeah.
guys that impatient?
and like
Oh.
but I love the climbing, the shooting, like
the
it's
climbing's really good. The shooting's
like I love like
improved.
it's like a weird reverse of Uncharted to me. You know, it's like I like
Interesting, yeah.
Because Uncharted is like I love the cutscenes in the story, and then I almost wish I could skip the climbing and the
See-
shooting. And then Tomb Raider's now become the opposite, where it's like I love exploring and shooting and climbing, and then the cutscenes are just like. What little I've seen, I'm just like raising an eyebrow, and I'm like, this doesn't even feel like the same Laura.
Just because that's so confusing. Like, what about it? Like, what specifically is she doing those cutscenes? It doesn't feel right.
Well, she's just
She's
want
all
her
over the
They
place.
want her to be this like cold-blooded, confident killer, and then in like the first interaction she has with the what I'm assuming is the main antagonist, she seems very unsure of herself and she doesn't know what she did. But then in the cutscene previously, like she did seem like she knew what she was doing when she grabbed the blade. It just nothing's lining up, nothing's clicking
that's
together.
That's actually something I mentioned in my review. It feels like you're playing 2 different Laras, and you're sitting there like, 1 minute she's this like kind, they want to make show that she's a good person, so she's like helping children, reuniting parents with their kids,
All
that.
right.
And then the next moment she's freaking going on these killing sprees and like hanging a guy from a tree, and it's just like
Slowly sawing his head off.
And I get what the point is like how far will you go, kind of, for they're trying to make this point of how far will she go to get what she needs to save the world. And
I heard
also,
it's the darkest Tomb Raider yet.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. It's dark in other ways, but it's dark in that sense. But I didn't buy it, like the whole story too, all the way up until the end. And I'll be honest, as someone who's been following this, and this is supposed to be the finale of her origin story,
Right.
Finally.
So disappointing. I remember
boy.
sitting there and be
Yeah.
like, this was the big thing I was waiting for. This is the moment that, because they kept saying she becomes the Tomb Raider. I'm like, this is what
She's
I've been
done that
waiting
throughout
for.
all these games.
I
at
know,
different
I
points.
know. And
like-
it's just like, that was the moment, her defining moment, because that's what they made a big deal of. And I'm like, that was not.
Does she finally braid her hair? Is that the?
Oh, finally
She's
that
already
ponytail.
done like almost everything that like the old Tomb Raider
Yeah.
games have set forward. It's like at the end of that
It's-
first game, it's like, well, she's officially the Tomb Raider. But it's like, oh, not quite. Wait until she goes
Now
to the tombs
she's
and rises to the Tomb Raider. It's like,
rising.
all right, now she did it. No, not quite. It's
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
I don't know.
It was
what-
this big thing.
For me, like as a fan of this series, like I'm only 5 hours in, so I haven't finished the game.
Okay.
But I've been enjoying the gameplay and the action. It's definitely less polished. Polished, like that word. is what I'm saying. And like there's some rough spots, but like if you liked those last two games, I think there's something here. Like if you just like the
would hope
core
so.
gameplay, like I
yeah,
think
that's
it's
what I'm
fun.
saying. I'm not saying don't play it.
I didn't play those last two for the story anyway. Like
I'm still excited to play it.
Yeah.
Like despite being turned off by the story, that's how much I love the action of that game. Like
Wow.
I will still see that game to the end for
I
sure.
feel like last time we talked about this game on the show, you're like, I really want to see the conclusion of that story. I like her relationship with her father. I want to learn more about that. All that stuff.
I was being super sarcastic if that didn't come clear. Like the stuff with
What?
yeah, like I
Oh, what
really
the hell, Kyle?
the one time I was supposed to be sarcastic, it didn't come through.
It did not.
Like, the
It did
the
not
stuff
ring
with
true
her
at all.
father is just like eye rolling at the end of,
Well,
the, of,
it's
of
just
Rise
they
of the Tomb
depend
Raider.
on it so much
Yeah.
for everything. And yes, you get more of that in this game. So
Okay. All right. So
I was
7.5.
totally kidding.
I did not read that.
Just like
at
with the
all.
Labo
that's what I'm
stuff.
saying. I'm just saying because of the
Yeah,
fact.
most of the reviews he writes are sarcastic.
Yeah,
Are
they're
those,
all sarcastic.
those numbers, it's in italics. Aren't you
Breath
idiots
of
picking
the
up on that?
Wild, a
Like I
10?
said.
You think so? Really?
As Reeves said, I want to probably like it is still fun. There
Yeah.
are great moments. There's just a lot of head scratchers throughout it as well.
Bananas.
Bananas. It is bananas. It's crazy.
Now, this is the conversation I wish I had before what's about to come up in this podcast, because now we have an interview with Jason Dozois, the narrative director for the game, and I would have loved to have like talked about these things. I just had no idea. Also, Rich Briggs, the senior brand director from Crystal, so talking a little about the history of the game's development, stuff like that. So without further ado, here are Rich and Jason. Rich and Jason, welcome to the Game Informer Show, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you.
Thank
So
you.
if you're watching the video version, we have Jason Skyping in from beautiful Montreal, and then we have Rich calling in from Crystal Dynamics itself, right?
That is correct.
Fantastic. And it's a bummer that we can't see you, Rich. Not only are you a pretty fellow, but also people might recognize you in the video version as also the man who dies in the beginning of Dead Space 2. Is that right?
That is correct. It's, I think, one of my claims to fame. I've always been honored to be the first person killed in Dead Space 2.
Because you were a producer and they just scanned you in, or how did that work again?
It was that I evidently had the perfectly shaped head to let it transform into a necromorph. So I, by nature of my skull, was the natural fit.
That's perfect. Do you have do you still have fond memories of working on like that first Dead Space in particular?
I do, actually. I got to see it from both sides. I was on the marketing, and then I was on the production side, and then a producer on both Dead Space 1 and 2, and it was a lot of fun. It was a game that I think sort of was a long time coming and a long time convincing people it was the right game to make at the right time, but we were really excited by the fan response, and it was just a ton of fun working on it. It was, I was very excited and very happy to be able to play a small part in that.
Yeah, and now you're immortalized in a game. It's got to be nice. Jason, I'm curious about your history, and specifically your history with the Tomb Raider franchise.
Well, I mean, my previous game at Square Enix here at Eidos, Montreal, was Mankind Divided.
Yeah.
So that was my narrative direction thing going in. When I finished that project, they were like, hey, it's in the same building, and I knew some of the people from previous projects, and I got onto this project.
Cool. And I saw, I might have Googled your name a little bit. Did you work on Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings?
Yes, I did.
That's got to be so bizarre to work on an official Indiana Jones game and now work on Tomb Raider. Do you have a lot of memories from that project? Have they been bubbling up throughout the course of working on Shadow of the Tomb Raider here?
Of course, that came up, and it's been so long now. I think it's 11 years ago now, but that was when the Wii was being launched, and the whip, and then doing the whip moves and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun to work on that game.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Okay, so Rich and Jason, you guys got to help me out. Can you take me back to like the handoff between the studios from Tomb Raider going from a Crystal Dynamics game to an Eidos Montreal game? Do you want to just walk me through that process from both your perspectives, how that handshake happened and what the collaboration's been like?
All right. So, I mean, from our side, the last 3 games have been a collaboration between Crystal and Eidos Montreal. But even before that, on the first Deus Ex that we did in the studio, there was already a technical collaboration. So the relationship goes back, I mean, almost over 10 years now between the 2 studios. So it was a lot of natural communication, first with the technology, and then going in, having Eidos Montreal work on some of the content for TR9, and then, Tomb Raider 2013, and also doing a lot of the maps on Rise of the Tomb Raider. So there was already this relationship established. When it comes to the story aspect, I mean, still Noah Hughes and Rich, they're still at Crystal, and we worked really closely with them on the story of the game, and they were really instrumental in just orchestrating the whole structure of the game for Shadow.
Yeah. What's it like for you, Rich?
Well, from my perspective, absolutely agree with what Jason was saying, and for me, there was just no better team and no better fit to move Lara's origin story conclusion across that finish line. As Jason said, you know, the Eidos Montreal team have had their heart and soul in the Tomb Raider franchise since the beginning of the reboot, and you know, in addition to creating content for Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider, and being responsible for a lot of the great challenge tunes and puzzles and levels that fans played across the game, we also have just a lot of that shared DNA. You know, people like Dan Bisson being the game director, on both Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider. In fact, he was working out of Crystal here, for Tomb Raider 2013. Then he went and did that from Montreal for Rise of the Tomb Raider. So having him as the senior game director and creative director on Shadow of the Tomb Raider just means that you've got someone who has been intrinsically involved with Lara Croft's reboot from the very beginning. And you had a bunch of the team that he brought with him who worked on both games, but you also had that injection of fresh new blood. So from my perspective, it kind of gave you the best of both worlds. You've got people who have had their DNA in the Tomb Raider reboot from the beginning, and then you have new people who are coming in saying, hey, what if we tried this? What if we, played with that? And that lets you push those boundaries a little bit and deliver those surprises that are going to delight our fans when they're playing Lara Croft's defining moment.
Yeah. So, okay, you mentioned the conclusion of the origin story. That's such a mushy spot. And Jason, I wonder if you can speak to the challenges of that. Like, how do you have an impact in that kind of strange middle ground?
Well, it's a massive responsibility because not only do we have to conclude the story of this game in a satisfying way, we have to conclude the story, the arc of the trilogy in a satisfying way. So obviously there's a lot of people involved in trying seeing where do we want to leave her? Where does it end? What does it feel like for that ending? And try and make sure that there's a big enough challenge that is going to reveal things about previous games, about her personality, and also have her overcome and really grow over the course of this game. So I think that did you finish it? Did you play the game at all? Or
no, actually, I haven't started it yet. People who just talked on the podcast before us, they've been playing a hell of a lot of it.
All right, so I don't want to spoil too much for you, but anyway, this defining moment is really just challenging her and having her really, really grow and finally become the Tomb Raider she was meant to be.
Why frame it as the conclusion of the origin story? Why not just call this a trilogy? It's not ruling out future entries or anything, but just the phrasing of that. And Rich, maybe you can speak to that better from a brand perspective. What's appealing about saying this is the conclusion of the origin story specifically?
Well, I think that it does a couple of things, and it's absolutely correct to call it, an origin trilogy if you wanted to. But I do think that having a sense of finality is important. And what we wanted to make sure we were doing was presenting an experience that for the fans who have been with us since Tomb Raider 2013 and then played through Rise of the Tomb Raider, they know that this is that defining moment, as we said. This is when Lara's becoming the Tomb Raider she's destined to be. This is when it's all culminating. This is the biggest fight that we've ever had. This is, the Maya apocalypse. This is finding out really what happened with Trinity. And, without getting into spoiler territory, it's a very rewarding capstone. It's that great bookmark to this adventure that Lara's been on, and this adventure that started so long ago when she just wanted to make her mark on the world. Now you're going to see how she actually does that.
Right.
At the same time, we want to make sure that we're delivering something that feels very accessible to fans. And that's also why we have that phrase of it's Lara Croft's defining moment, because for the fans who maybe didn't jump on board with Tomb Raider 2013 or Rise of the Tomb Raider, we're letting them know that, hey, this is the moment that you can come on board. This is when you're going to see Lara at her most capable, her most calculating. If you hadn't played the previous games, this is the one to come on board for. So we're trying to sort of thread that needle.
Right. And we rarely have brand directors on the show. I think it's an interesting position, Rich. But I'm wondering if you can just speak to, like, how do you get gamers' attention, especially with the third entry in a series? It has to be very tough. And like saying it's the build-up, that obviously works. I think this is maybe just a weird read amongst my friends and some coworkers, but I feel like we love the new Tomb Raider games. We always enjoy them when we play them, but we don't think about them much in the downtime. Like, so how do you get people excited for this from your very specific brand directing position?
It's a great question. I think it's a challenge across any video game of how are you competing for gamers' time. So I think that there's a couple of things we try and do. We want to make sure that we obviously are not alienating our fans. We're delivering an experience that they expect, that that they deserve when you talk about Lara Croft's defining moment. But I think we also want to make sure that we are showing people something new. And whether you talk about the narrative in terms of how this is Lara actually being confident to a fault in some ways, that she's the one that triggers through a rash decision the Maya apocalypse, or whether you look at the new combat tactics that we're introducing, using mud as camouflage and striking, from the jungle like a jaguar, or making the tombs bigger and scarier than ever before. I think it's always about trying to show people something that fits as a natural progression and a natural evolution, but also shows them something surprising. And that's what hopefully gets people to sit up and take notice, because they can say, wow, I've never had that, jungle survival fantasy, that Rambo moment or the Predator moment where I'm covering myself up with mud, or I've never seen Lara portrayed in this light. And whereas a fan would look at it and say, yeah, this is her just coming into her own, to a person who, as you were saying, maybe isn't thinking about Tomb Raider in their downtime. This is a way to show them Tomb Raider in a way that they haven't seen before.
Jason, what do you think has been the most fun period of development for this game? When was the most exciting times? When were your brain cells lit on fire here?
It's when we came, we had played with the structure of this game several times. So to me, when I look back over the several years, it's really just, for me, normally at a whiteboard, with a bunch of people just brainstorming ideas and coming up with, and when you click on something and everyone in the room is like, yeah, that's awesome. Those kind of moments, I think, are really memorable. And just like, the way the game is now, it's not like we sat down, did a list, and then in 3 years nothing changed. We kind of try things out to see what works, what doesn't work, and we shifted some things around. And some of those changes we did are my favorite parts of the game. And sometimes just moving one piece from here to here makes a huge difference in how it feels and stuff like that. So we did a lot of those little small changes that made a huge impact emotionally. So that's the stuff that I look back and I think, wow, that was a lot of fun.
What are they, gameplay moments? Are they little story beats? Is like one of those ideas that everybody jumps up and hollers about? Is it stuff like the Jaguar scene? Or is it big stuff like, okay, this set piece, we need to move this from the third act to the second?
Well, both of those things. I'll give you a specific example. You've probably seen in some of the promos where Lara kind of gets out of the water and there's fire behind her and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, that moment, that wasn't clicking with playtesters who were playing it, and people were like, and we're thinking, man, this is a big moment for us, and people weren't getting it, and we said, man, the problem was probably earlier, So we kept it because we believed in that moment, and we went back and we saw, some of the things in the sequence leading up to that were a little bit taking away from that momentum. So we ended up kind of removing a scene completely, and then that whole sequence paid off better. So sometimes if you really believe in a moment, you need to kind of stick with it and then remove anything that's interfering with that moment. So that's a specific example.
And that's just time for iteration, right? Just trying to work that into the development schedule, just saying, let's slow down a bit. We don't need to rush this game out the door necessarily. We need time to test this, evaluate how people are feeling at each moment.
Well, yeah, because you need to, it's not just how does it feel at the ending. You want to make sure that at critical moments throughout the story that the feelings that you want, the feelings you're designing are coming across, like that's where playtesting is very, very powerful, and it can say, all right, are you guys getting this emotion when you're playing it? If not, you need to analyze, and sometimes there's a fun gameplay moment, but maybe that gameplay moment is disrupting the emotional trajectory. Maybe it belongs somewhere else, and sometimes we're not afraid to make those kinds of decisions.
Yeah, for sure. Any super surprising reactions from playtests? Specific things that really stuck with you?
We have a multi-tiered difficulty setting. Right?
Yeah.
Because we wanted to make the puzzles a bit more difficult. We wanted to do things, and this was causing problems because some people want hints right away with the puzzle. Some people don't want any hints, and there was no sweet spot. And so through iteration, we were like, okay, man, we need to make a different difficulty setting. So this all grew kind of organically, and then there was this group called Growl, get rid of white ledges, and said that they didn't want exploration help and all these things. So you put all that together, and then it's like we came up with this multi-tiered difficulty system for combat, for exploration, and for puzzles to solve problems we are having through playtesting. So you look back now and people are like, oh, wow, this is great. It's like it was us solving problems. So without the playtesting, we never would have really exposed the problems to that extent. And what it gives us is be able to play your way. Some players are like, I want the puzzle super hard, but I don't want to mess with the combat, and I can tweak it that way to make sure I get the experience that I want. And now that and it was a lot of work, and some days I was like, oh, there's so many lines of dialogue for these hints. But now that we've done it and it's all done, I'm very happy we did that because you're able to do it and really play your way, and it's a lot of fun.
It's great, but now Square's going to be stuck in that mold of that's such a cool difficulty scale that every game you guys make moving forward is going to have those different options. So good luck with that. Great. Anything else you guys would like to say?
Well, I think it's really exciting. I'm so happy because the team has been working on this for a really long time. It's been amazing to watch the progress and all heart and soul that's gone into the game. So from my perspective, I'm just so excited for our fans to now finally get their chance to experience this moment, because I think it's a lot of stuff that you want and love out of the Tomb Raider game. I think it's a lot of things that you didn't know that you couldn't wait to play in the Tomb Raider game, and I think we found several places where we're going to surprise and delight our fans. So I'm just excited for the Tomb Raider community to get their hands on Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah, how you feeling, Jason?
I mean, it's been this year has been exceedingly difficult. A lot of crunch trying to get the polish on this game, and we're very, very happy with it. And I can't wait to see what people think. I hope they love it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Rich, I just have one more question for you. Did you find the raw Dana Gould Gex recordings yet in the basement of Crystal Dynamics?
Ben, I know I owe that to you.
You really do.
I need to. I think I know where it is, because we did a clean out, and I remember keeping all the CDs. So I think I know where it is. I don't have the exact disc. I've got to dig in after launch. I've got to dig in and find that for you.
Absolutely, I understand.
You asked about that.
You need the vacation, enjoy the launch of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and then at some point, if you could just get those tapes over to us, we could run them on the podcast. It'd be so much fun.
I'm writing a note to myself right now. I will remember to do that.
Awesome. Hey, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Rich and Jason, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, man.
Cool.
Thank you, Ben.
Do you remember what episode it was that I was like, oh, don't you want to find out what happened with the father? Do you remember that?
I think it was when we were bidding on the games we were going to play.
Oh, I want to go back and listen to that, because I really was genuinely being sarcastic. It was like, to me, the biggest, like, who cares? At the end of that game was like, your father is alive. I was like,
maybe you're totally right. Maybe I knew it at the moment, but in my mind, I have you down as like a character.
But I do, man. I'm still totally excited to play that game.
No, it's like I said, I can't say that I didn't have, like I said, I could play it for hours on end.
Yeah.
But like I would then sit there and be like, what the
And your thoughts on whatever the finale, maybe I don't want it spoiled, makes me more excited.
Yeah,
to
no,
see what
I had Reiner actually this weekend, because I was like, did you finish yet? Because he read my review, and I was like, no, not yet. And then I was like, finish, and then come talk to me. So later that day, he's like, oh my God, you are not kidding.
Okay.
He's like, yes. He's like, what the was
Here's
that?
my prediction. She takes her pants and she cuts them really low cut and pulls off her sleeves to be in the original Tomb Raider outfit.
And wears her sleeves as pant legs? What?
Anyways, we're still talking about Shadow of the Tomb Raider here. Thanks to those guys for Skyping in for a little bit of context. I don't know if you guys remember. You do, because you were on the Rise of the Tomb Raider trip.
Yeah.
Do you remember that time that Rich said, like, oh yeah, we have Dana Gould's raw recordings from doing the Gex VOs somewhere at Crystal. I just saw him the other day.
I'll go grab them for you.
In theory, we're going to
Nobody's
get
seen
those.
Rich since.
That's right, and air them on this show. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Maybe get Dana Gould's approval, which would probably be a cool thing to do.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So
of
this
just
is
like,
what 3-4 years in the making. This
yes,
this
the
feature?
big Dana Gould Gex explosion. It's going to be a special edition episode just devoted to Mr. Gould, the comedian. Okay, that's it. A lot of Tomb Raider, folks. Do you guys want to clap out and we can get rolling on Destiny?
Let's do it.
Oh my gosh, Suriel Vasquez, Matt Miller.
We really had to coordinate that whole clap in.
Well, look, magic
that
is
was
hard.
like the fourth attempt, everybody.
Don't reveal what happens behind the scenes. You know, that's private information for the GI show. Okay, we're here, Suriel, Miller, to talk about Destiny 2 Forsaken. Just for a setup for you, Miller. Last week,
Yes.
Suriel did a very good job. He was very eloquent as ever of giving kind of like a high-level overview of the campaign,
Yeah.
taking down the different barons, stuff like that. So that's where our audience is really at. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts, Miller, because you were not involved with the Forsaken cover story content in terms of this podcast.
Yeah.
Because you were busy with other things.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm so excited. I don't know your take on this game really hardly at all. So you've been playing...
We had like the cover story that I did,
Right.
the print story, and
Yes.
then like, yeah.
And then for the online stuff, you're busy. But for this game overall,
Yeah.
you've played a lot of it at this point, I'd assume.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it?
It's great.
Yep.
I think is the word I would use. It's excellent. And
Excellent.
it might be their best expansion.
Okay, because in everyone's mind, I feel like it was, okay, they're kind of positioning this thing as the Taken King equivalent for Destiny 2, but that is a high bar. That's the last time I really loved Destiny, I feel like. And you're saying it hits that again?
I would say that the verdict is still out, and it's very hard with a game like any game like this, World of Warcraft, Destiny, these deep, involved, lengthy games, to really have a true determination this early to be able to say, like, this is better than Taken King.
Some issues might arise 2 months in. Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that some great things could arise 2 months in.
Yeah.
That, new events and new secrets that get found, all that stuff is still in process. And so I think it's hard to really confidently say that it's quote unquote better than Taken King, but it's certainly in that running.
Wow. Okay.
It does a lot of the things that I think longtime Destiny players have wanted to see have happen. It addresses many of the problems that have plagued the game since Destiny 2's launch last year around this time.
What are the big bullet points there?
Well, people didn't like the new weapon slot system. Many people didn't like it. There was an overall sense that the structure of play was maybe oversimplified in the name of bringing new players in, which, by the way, Destiny 2 did bring new players in. For all the things that over the last year the community around that game has harped about and complained about and all that kind of stuff, it's very easy to forget that in the very first couple of weeks of play, it drew in a whole new batch of players, and that even a lot of players, myself included, really, really enjoyed Destiny 2 in its first few weeks.
And then the problems started to get bigger and bigger.
The problems that were present were things that made the long-term game less enjoyable the longer you played.
Yeah.
The token economy, the nature of team shooting in the competitive play, so that you could never feel like you were gaining quite as much mastery as you wanted to. There was just a host of things that people got frustrated about.
Right. I think a lot of it had to do with sort of the way that objectives were sort of like split up into like, here is your weekly run of milestones, and that will get you better gear. And then
you were done.
Yeah. And then if you want to sort of, there's these, everything else felt like extracurricular. If you want to chase armor sets, if you want to sort of engage with basically like a lot of the collection aspect, that was sort of a thing you did on the side after you were done with the main milestone stuff. So it felt like here are all these important aspects to like a loot-based game that are being kind of thrown by the wayside in favor of like chasing a number.
And Destiny 2 at its core, in addition to those system-based things, which I think you're summarizing really well there, Suriel, there was also the fact that there was a tonal inconsistency that increasingly became grating over time with Destiny 2, where
losing the magic was. I remember you had that complaint.
Right. It felt at times like while the actual core campaign was a pretty well told story structurally, and you went to interesting locales and the destinations were beautiful to look at, there was something about the overall feel of the writing and of the storytelling that felt like it had missed something about what's magical about Destiny. This sort of mystical, fantastical element, this mystery, a certain level of kind of darkness. That
literal darkness,
not literal darkness, figurative darkness, right? Like that there was something that felt like, well, everybody's trying to crack a joke in the midst of these like situations where it should really be really serious. Like humankind is about to go extinct,
but now thankfully Cade 6 is dead, so there's no more jokes in Forsaken.
I haven't heard a peep out of Failsafe in a long time. I'm very happy.
I think that by comparison, Forsaken is a much more nuanced storytelling experience. It actually has some genuine pathos that it develops over the course of its story, and it's a darker story that is dealing a lot with issues of does it matter why we do things, the intent behind why we kill people or kill aliens or whatever, or not,
or chase levels,
right? Or chase levels, or grow more powerful, right? And a lot of those systems. Ideas that Suriel was talking about have also been addressed in meaningful ways that make both the progression curve and the experience of gameplay a lot more fulfilling.
Yeah. Are you as charmed overall as Miller is here?
I think so. Like, I think my favorite things about it so far is that it feels like Miller said, it sort of brings that stuff that I mentioned as being extracurricular more to the surface, because basically, like, anything you do will eventually gain you the progress that milestones used to give you, but now it's all tied to challenges, which feel like you're out there chasing things and also, you know, collecting armor sets, which are now a lot easier to sort of want because they have like a new collection screen where you can see here's all the stuff, here's how to get them, and if you do more of this activity, you'll get you'll be rewarded with this armor.
Yeah.
But also it's tied to the bounty system, which has you basically going to the vendor, getting these bounties to do specific tasks, which are easy to accomplish, but then those are eventually tied to, if you gain enough experience, you'll get powerful gear. And so you're basically chasing multiple objectives at once, which sort of makes that, like, it's better about instilling that sort of like, I'm so close to completing this thing that makes a loot grind game so much more enticing.
Yeah.
And I think Destiny has finally gotten to that place where I don't want to stop playing because like the next sort of big goal is right around the corner, and you want to keep rounding those corners.
Totally, I get the pitch. It's always funny when you've been out of the loop of Destiny's grind for a little bit to be like, dude, this treadmill goes so fast. You got to get on this treadmill because sprinting's so much fun.
Right.
It's like, why would I want to get on that treadmill if it's just never ending?
I think the curve, at least as it has made itself apparent in this first week, is very appealing because you're chasing the thing, you're doing the activities that you want to do, and you can consistently go do those activities and expect that you're going to get a small but meaningful improvement. There's a big space between what that people call the soft cap of power and the hard cap, and that's going to be a really long grind, but the things that you're doing along that grind generally offer new items that are going to move you up the scale a little bit.
Okay.
And there's just a lot of new things. Like I think if you had just introduced Forsaken as here's a whole restructuring of the game, I think it would have been pretty solid. But I think layering stuff like Gambit, like the Tangled Shore, like the Dreaming City, and all these sort of disparate quests that they're now giving you. Like I have 2 exotic quests that I'm chasing independently. And then a bunch of bounties and stuff that I'm chasing all of this stuff all at once, but I'm also doing new, like, exciting things to get those things done, which, like, basically rounds out the other stuff like Crucible by making it a smaller component of a larger whole, I think.
And while you're doing those things that Suriel's talking about, they've done a great job of offering opportunities for layering, where you're taking multiple tasks that you might want to complete and having that fun element of saying, like, okay, well, I can work on this exotic quest where I need to get this many kills with this type of weapon in the Crucible, but I can also get these bounties. I can pick up these bounties from shacks that are going to let me, okay, I'm going to get some more Crucible tokens that way, and simultaneously I'm going to be doing this other thing. Like there's this sense that in any one activity that you're doing, you're feeling kind of smart because you're thinking about those ways that you're improving along multiple scales at the same time.
Right. Even something as simple as like, all right, you'll have sort of two objectives that are like get kills with a shotgun and get kills with arc damage. Well, I have this arc shotgun, so I'm going to get both of those done at the same time.
Right. And that makes you feel like, oh, I'm
optimizing.
tricking the game. I'm
Beating
optimizing.
the system.
I'm beating the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
So there's that stuff going on. I would say at this point, and again, it's very hard early on to make concrete claims about a game like this. But at this point, the one negative that I would have to say about the game is that there are times that in its attempts to emulate what was successful about Destiny 1 and integrate that into what is good about Destiny 2.
Systems-wise.
Yes.
Okay.
Some things are going to be overly complicated to people who aren't totally plugged into the game.
What kind of stuff?
Well, for instance, the upgrade system for your weapons, your infusion process, that kind of thing, is much more complicated now than it was before. For someone like Suriel or myself who's playing this game multiple hours every day, I don't think that's going to be an issue, because you're generally understanding. Okay, well, this is where I go to get this thing. It says that I need this particular planetary material. I just need to go here to get that. Or I can go to this other vendor and buy it. But if you're a player who's maybe a lapsed player or somebody who plays the game a little bit more casually, I think it's going to be harder to wrap your head around some of that stuff. In many ways, Destiny 2's base game felt like it appealed too far towards that casual, accessible market in the long term.
Okay.
And it's possible that Forsaken is going a pretty long distance the other direction. That it's very much catered towards players like myself who are like, this is my hobby, man. I'm going home and I'm playing Destiny 2 tonight and we're going to go do this. And we're going to do this. I'm going to get with my clan and we're going to like do this activity. And I think that the story that for more casual players, you're certainly going to be able to enjoy Forsaken. The storyline is really great. I think it's their best story.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I really do. Because it's more personal. Because they like focus on characters and they focus on like how you as a guardian are doing what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing and that kind of thing. You're going to be able to enjoy that story, and the campaign is a lot of fun, and the destinations you go to are a lot of fun. But I think that if you're not going to be like going to the community pages every day, going to Destiny Reddit or going to the Bungie forums, if you're not going to be going online to look for guides of like, what am I supposed to do once I get to the Dreaming City?
Right.
Without that component, there may be things that people are like, well, why am I still... I don't even know what to do now in this game.
Yeah.
Right.
Even as like as someone who's played a lot of Destiny, like that, the material system feels like needlessly complex because, it also like it de-incentivizes you constantly infusing things, which is sort of how I play Destiny, which
I
is
agree.
I have a favorite gun and I'm just going to keep powering that gun up because I like it so much.
Yeah.
Whereas now I feel like because it is taking up this other resource that you have to go out of your way to get in a lot of cases, it feels like I'm less incentivized to like constantly keep bringing up my guns.
I think this is going to be an ongoing debate within the community for Destiny because a lot of people like that there is that deeper grind for materials and for legendary shards and for masterwork cores, and you really got to work to get those infusions. And I get that argument, and to some degree I'm on board with that. But it ignores the fact that for a lot of players, the joy of the Destiny experience is experimentation. And if it costs a tremendous amount to be able to pull up interesting items to make them viable for use at high-level play, people just aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
And so you're just going to get a drop and be like, well, this is the highest level thing I have. I better put on this shotgun. I don't really want to use this shotgun, but I better use it because if you're not a player who has a lot of those materials and you're maybe a little bit more casual of a player, I think it's going to be hard to feel like it's worth going back and grinding for that stuff.
Right.
So that's a long explanation of the one thing that I have concerns about here. It's just that there are many things. It's very clear that Bungie and High Moon Studios looked at the success of Destiny 1, looked at the way that hobby players enjoyed playing that previous game, and said, like, what can we pull over? What can we make Destiny 2 better with by looking to our previous work? And in so doing, I think in most cases they've made something better.
Okay.
That is an amalgamation of the two. But in a few situations, it maybe has gone a little bit too far towards needless fiddliness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny to think of Bungie zigging and zagging with every release here. Like, what about this stance? What about this stance? What about this stance? With Forsaken now, does it look like Destiny 2 was a worthy experiment, just maybe a little bit too bold? Like, how do you look back on Destiny 2 in general? I know you covered like a lot of the basics in the beginning, but is it, you think, something that the series should have done, that they should have been so bold and experimental with kind of shedding the past, or was it just all out a mistake at this point?
I am very hesitant to label Destiny 2's core game as a mistake. I think there were I think that there were a lot of things that were really smart in Destiny 2. I with the passing of months, I've taken increased issue with the decision to leave behind Destiny 1.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like with each passing month, I felt like, I kind of think this game might be stronger if it was just a continuation of what the original game had been, with like some changes to systems. But there's lots of reasons why that didn't happen, not the least of which is that there were behind the scenes technical changes to the way they wanted to make the game.
Yeah.
That made it impossible, I think, to be able to carry stuff over from D1. But there were things about Destiny 2 that drove away a lot of their audience, and ultimately that's a big problem in today's game sphere of players. Once you lose somebody, it is very hard to get them back. I think Forsaken, for players who are willing to give it a shot, the players who loved Destiny 1 and loved its expansions like Taken King and Rise of Iron, if you dropped into Forsaken now after being somewhat disillusioned with what was on offer in Destiny 2, you will be impressed.
Yeah,
I think it's really strong and does a lot of things right. But unfortunately, the nature of what the base game did, drove a lot of people away, and some of them aren't going to come back.
Right. A lot of the times it feels like when you do something like that, you become like someone who used to smoke or someone who used to eat meat. You just become the most sort of like adamant person against that thing.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I agree. Now, on the other hand, Destiny 2 brought in a bunch of new players, and if some of those players have stuck around and are now ready for that deeper, more involved progression system and a more complex weapons slot system, and Crucible that's maybe a little bit more built around mastery and growth and that kind of thing. I don't know how it all balances out. In the end, though, I would say that Forsaken is something that feels right now, a week in, like it's what the player base for that game wanted it to be.
Oh, good.
Right.
Good.
I think there are some looming possible issues right now. I think the biggest one is that I'm not light enough, I'm not powerful enough to run it yet, but there's a new thing called the Blind Well, which is sort of this repetitive like wave-based mode that we played during our cover story, which I think is really cool.
And we have a new gameplay today video of it too, right? Okay.
But right now it still relies on sort of a lot of the same mechanisms as Escalation Protocol, which oftentimes requires you to sort of circumvent the game in order to have like the best experience. So
for matchmaking, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So you can only bring 3 people in to your fire team, but a lot of people have said like the best way to run this is with 6 people. So you basically have to figure out a way to like, let's both get in the same instance, and we're both going to try to get our fire. Like once these 2 random players have basically matched up in the same instance, they're both going to bring in their friends, and now we have 6 people instead of sort of dedicated matchmaking, which is I think what a lot of people want, or the ability to bring in a 6-person fire team into the Blind Well. I think those 2 things I think would improve that activity a lot. And I'm also conscious of like, how is the power curve between the rest of this, because it feels like I'm running up against the high end of the activities. So after between, let's say, 550 and maybe 600, what is the progression going to look like after that?
Yeah.
But right now, I feel like this is the most fun I've had with Destiny 2.
That's
so, like,
awesome.
by a long shot.
That's
And-
great.
And I think that's fantastic.
I think a majority of the audience are going to be in the camp, which is a very particular camp of Destiny 2 is the PlayStation Plus game of the month right now.
Yeah.
You can get that for free-ish type thing, PlayStation subscription. So what would they need to get? Because there's a certain thing you need to buy in order to even get to Forsaken, right? 'Cause you need to buy like the DLC in between it, or how does that work?
You're going to expose my ignorance here a little bit to the way that PSN offer was. I kind of think I heard that it offered up that it, even though it didn't say so, that it also included some of these other expansions.
So it got people fully primed.
I just
mechanically.
don't
Yeah,
know.
it's hard.
Forsaken.
Like they have like so many editions of that game.
That's
at this
what's
point.
tough for an audience,
Right.
yeah.
And so like the thing you want to get is you want to get the one that gives you Forsaken and the expansion packs. I think that's either like a $40 just here's Forsaken, or there might be a $60 version. So that stuff can be kind of hard to sort of wade through. And there's also like if you just want to start Forsaken, they do offer you an item called a mode of, I think it's a mode of light or something, that will boost your character basically past all of those previous campaigns and just start you at Forsaken.
So hang on.
Do they have that in the game? I haven't seen it.
I think I have one of those items, but I haven't used it
Okay.
yet.
So hang on. This is very mechanical and very stupid, but I can just buy Forsaken if I've never played a Destiny game. Just buy that $40 thing and play.
No, I think if you don't have the base game, you might have to pay $60.
Okay.
But at that point, you get an item that would, like, if you just want to ignore Destiny 2's campaign, which I think it's worth playing.
Yeah.
You can buy an item that boosts you that starts you at Forsaken effectively.
Oh boy, Destiny.
Yeah.
Help us love you.
I think that one of the things, if somebody really was curious about Destiny and they either had played the core Destiny 2 experience and they liked it and then they left just because they did and they went to play other things, or they didn't like it, I think one of the things that you could do at this point, particularly because of the PSN offer, is you could play through a lot of that core stuff with the new systems in place, and you could get a sense for how the gameplay flow has changed.
Okay.
That stuff is apparent whether you have Forsaken or not. Whether you decide to spend the money to go in and play Forsaken, you would be able to see the way these new weapon slots things make play a lot more fun. That you have your snipers and your shotguns and your fusion rifles up in your upper two slots, and you can do more with them. You'd get to see the way that the competitive game feels more competitive. A lot of that stuff is going to be available just by hopping in and playing like a free PSN version of Destiny 2. And then if you're like, yeah, this is pretty sweet, then you could like check and see like, okay, well, what do I need to do to get the things I need to play through the other expansions, or do I want to just jump
Right.
up to Forsaken? I'm sorry, I don't know all
fine.
the details
That's
there
fine.
of like how you would do that. Because I've just kind of been playing along as it's happened.
Yep. There's so many
I'm not
different
totally
on-ramps
plugged
here. It's
in
a
there.
mess. Totally get it.
But I think that the game is in as strong of a place as it has been.
Great.
And worth exploring.
And so you're writing a review.
Yeah.
Do you have any time frame in mind for when that review is going to be out?
This has been a tricky one, to be honest, because they've been very upfront, Bungie has, and their partners at High Moon, about plans to unfold the content in that game gradually. They've talked about the Dreaming City having multiple iterations almost, it sounds like, where it's going to change over time.
So we're waiting for some of those big climactic changes.
At the very
before-
least, we're thinking about like holding until we get a chance to see the raid here.
Cool.
So it's going to be a few days. We feel pretty strongly as a editorial outlet about trying to offer a meaningful evaluation in a review that takes into account the majority of what a game has to offer. And Destiny 2 Forsaken, by its nature, is a game that's unfolding over time. And so we're trying to strike a balance between like paying attention to that, but also making sure to do things like this,
Right.
where we talk about it even as we're evaluating
Get
it.
some sort of word out. But for now, seems excellent. Was your phrasing?
I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine anybody not really digging into this thing. I mean, it's like a Western-themed revenge story set with outer space like magic and crazy, like a crazy elven land that's been cursed, and it's just got all sorts of like fun
really strong moments
little
in that
Dinner
campaign
bell
for
for
sure.
dorks. Here we go. Come on down, everybody.
If you were into like sci-fi and fantasy tropes, there's a lot of that good stuff that's just like baked in here to make for a great gaming experience. And I certainly feel like as a longtime player, it's worth it for anybody who has played it. And if you haven't played Destiny 2 yet, or even if you've never played any Destiny stuff, this would be an awesome time to just drop in and like just play through the whole darn thing.
There's a lot to tackle.
This time the lore is in the game. You can go read it in the game.
That's
right.
true.
That's
And they're
right.
selling a book on the side.
They are.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Miller? What is it?
I
So it's
think
like all the Grimoire cards?
Yeah, and I don't know the exact details of what's going to be in there. I know some of it's going to be the Grimoire cards, and maybe that's all of it, or maybe they're going to have some other stuff in there too. But just as like a lore dork for Destiny stuff, I think it's great to have more avenues for people to explore that stuff, because so much of the Destiny story history that's been in game has been sort of at times almost adolescent in its approach to communicating itself. And the grimoire and the lore entries are much more sophisticated.
Poetic.
At times poetic, at times really hard science fiction stuff that's like, oh, there's time travel and there's like weird simulations of reality going on, and there's all these unusual contemplations about the nature of being deathless and immortal as a guardian, like stuff that's really
Get it out
interesting.
there. Let people absorb
and they put
it.
that stuff into the lore, and a lot of it now is now on offer in game, that you're finding things in the game and you're picking up these little stories, and while you're on loading screens or while you're waiting for your buddy to log in, you can read that thing, and you'd be like, oh, that was a cool little story.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Destiny 2 Forsaken, thank you so much.
Sure.
Do you guys, not necessarily you guys per se, but does the concept of the podcast want to move on to emails right now?
Speaking for the podcast, yes.
Here we go. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm still here. Now's the time for emails, and we assembled the dream team, the best email crew ever assembled under the sun. We have Ben Reeves.
Hello.
Kyle Hilliard.
I feel like you say that no matter who's on.
That's not true. Imran Khan.
I'm in the dream team because everyone else is asleep.
That's true. News editor Skyping in from San Francisco. What's going on out there these days, Imran?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
You guys
Wait a minute. Who's watching the news?
You guys got to do that one, remember?
Oh, God. Yeah, I told Reeves about it. It's really the dumbest, probably worst thing to do. But someone at the GameStop Managers Conference is like, that's my favorite thing on the podcast. Is when
That's
you and Reeves
funny.
screamed it. And I was trying to read his eyes like you, Kyle, to see if there's sarcasm in there. I don't think so. I think
Gotta
he meant
find out
it.
what happens to
In
Laura's
3
dad.
years, you'll
Just
see him
gotta
again and be like,
figure it out.
no, that was sarcastic, dude.
Why would anybody enjoy when you guys
I
scream into
never
the mic?
want you to do that again.
People write in to podcast@GameInformer.com with news stories, questions, words of wisdom, feedback, dares, trivia, little fun games, anything that makes the show better, podcast@GameInformer.com. We get a lot of great emails this week. We're going to read off some of our favorites, then choose our absolute number one favorite, and then honor where that person is from by putting a pin where they're from on our big map.
It's filling up.
It's filling up. A lot of great stuff. By the way, another disclaimer out there. If there's like some crazy news this week and we're not covering it on this episode of the podcast, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're recording it a little bit early, even though the podcast goes live on Thursday. So if that Nintendo Direct dropped, if anything big, I'm very sorry. But hopefully you guys are enjoying the Blackout Beta and all that stuff.
And they'll never know because all they do is listen to the podcast.
I know.
Gaming news.
Maybe some people. But yeah, write in with podcast@GameInformer.com if we missed something huge, and we'll talk about it on the next episode. We love you all, especially Jack White from Utah.
What?
The
There you
white
go.
stripes?
Absolutely. He says to Ben Hansen and Company. Question. What do you guys think of the recent trend in video games where developers give the players the ability to play as a low polygon version of the protagonist? I didn't realize there was such a trend, but he really maps it out here. Metal Gear Solid 5, Super Mario Odyssey, just a hat, but Rise of the Tomb Raider, A Hat in Time, have low polygon cosmetic options for the player to engage with. There are more titles that do this, but I think it's a very clever way to juxtapose modern visuals with a trip down memory lane. I love it. I want
that's
some more
cool.
of
Yeah.
it.
It was my favorite unlockable thing in Mario Odyssey, was getting that.
I liked it in
64.
Odyssey because like there was decent amount of nostalgia there. Like Shadow of the Tomb Raider has it, and I kind of hate it in that one.
Oh,
because,
really?
Like you can go back as like first reboot Laura, so the very original Tomb Raider, not original Tomb Raider, but the one a couple of years ago, and it looks just slightly off enough that it makes everything look strange.
Oh, wait, the 2013 Lara's in there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is such a weird choice.
That's a weird.
See, I
But they
love that,
also have
though.
the
I
old
love how
ones
weird
too.
it is.
They also have like the original PS1 era.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like the fun novelty thing. I wish you could like customize it to like just her legs or like the polygons. Just make it like like a mech from Armored Core, just swapping out different parts.
I think it's fun. I think
it's
more
cool,
developers should do it. What bugs me is you shouldn't wait until like the end of the game. Give it to us earlier than that. Maybe we want to play around.
Yeah,
with it
let us
while we're
just
playing the
break
game.
any sense of serious gravitas you're trying to convey in your story, because this is going to be some weirdo, gnarly Lara.
How many stories do you really care about in games? Not really.
This
1%.
is a very Jeff Cork topic. That's controversial. Out of all the games I play where I'm invested in the story,
Like 4.
I love a good story game, but realistically,
It's fewer than you want,
20%
yeah.
is pushing it. Is
that
that
seems
insane?
a little high because I would say like maybe three games a year, something like that.
That seems high.
This is the Game Informer show, for Christ's sake. What? This is damning for the entire industry. Imran, what's your number?
I mean, it depends. Like things I think are good, maybe like 2 games a year, but ones I actually get involved in, probably like 10.
10.
Yeah.
Because
so,
You know, because like I will get engaged in something that I don't necessarily consider as a good story. That's like a weird thing. But
does that
I will
work?
want to see it to its conclusion. But it's
Okay.
not necessarily like a great story with good writing.
Sure.
But I'm engaged and I want to see it
that's
through.
a fair point.
Jesus, I don't know. I think of like all the little games I play on Steam and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go through the dialogue and read it, but I'm not really gonna care about where this is going ultimately.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking about. I finished Guacamelee 2 recently. I'm just thinking
okay.
about that. I'm like, that story was like fun and lighthearted, but I don't consider it like a great story. But,
Right.
Yeah. To
I think
Kyle's
so.
point, like I was invested enough to read the dialogue, and I kind of wanted to know what the end was going to be.
Wow. Well, maybe we'll
Where's
learn
the
something.
pixel models for Guacamelee 2?
It's a good question. Maybe we'll learn something about Spider-Man in the Game Club coming up. Maybe there's something to discuss on this topic. Okay, here we go. Here's a real question. Okay, Devin from Rochester, Minnesota here, God's country, says, "Hey, GI crew. Recently, a coworker and myself who often discuss your publication and new video games." Sorry, that's a funny way of phrasing it. Had a game idea that we thought was a real banger, a real Humpty banger. He says, so be our green light team and listen to the
right.
pitch. All right, here's the pitch. This is really like
All right.
patently stupid from Jack
Okay,
Box.
so this is a dangerous like. Like, do we want to open the floodgates for everyone's game ideas?
Yes. By the way, setting it up, this is a pitch I have also daydreamed about for a long time.
All
Okay.
right.
The game is called, stay with me, Oregon Trail. The developer is Bethesda Game Studios. Engine, Unreal. They write Unreal and then parentheses Fallout 4. I don't think Fallout 4 is Unreal, but whatever. Something in that vein. Okay, so it's a first-person open-world RPG with a twist that the goal is to reach the West Coast with your map on the right side disappearing at your pace. But once that area is gone, you cannot return. This is specific. Okay. You must battle hunger, thirst, disease, bandits, wildlife, etc. The wagon or band of wagons is your mobile base, and the difficulty can be raised or lowered by the amount of children in your family. Like real life. The map will be partially procedurally generated with set pieces like the old games had, like Chimney Rock, Mississippi River, military forts. A final score can be attained with cutscenes when arriving at the West Coast, or you can just roam the Midwest. Other talking points include talking points for this fictional game. Building mechanics for when winter arrives or when you decide to stay. Hunting and crafting for survival. Hardcore mode with a single save. Permanent family member deaths. Woof. A zombie mode DLC with fully working Winnebago. Choose your morality by gaining all by proper means, or just murder and pillage your way to the West. Discuss amongst yourselves, and we will take cash or check. Thank you, Devin and Josh.
What's the release date for this?
He's actually working on it for later this year, so I think it's the green light. Bethesda is going to rush over to it, make it happen. I do love that idea. I don't know if it's Bethesda in particular, but I would love to see an RPG-focused take on Oregon Trail. Just an RPG where the goal is get to the West, and I love the procedural generation aspect of it.
So do you want the Oregon Trail like theme, like Old West, frontiersman?
Yes.
Or would it matter if it was like fantasy setting?
I don't want fantasy. No one likes fantasy. Go to the Old
Nobody,
West.
get out
Make
of
it
here.
licensed Oregon Trail.
Okay.
It would sell 1 gazillion copies. 1 gazillion.
1 gazillion.
Yes.
I feel like trying to sell Bethesda on the idea of no one likes fantasy might not work out well.
Well, look, you don't have to mention that part
Smart.
as we court them to try and make them the developer for this
So
game.
it's like a long, like it's a survival game where you're instead of like trying to survive in one location, you're just always moving. You're always forced to kind of move forward.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
interesting.
And the terrain would be tough. I don't think Oregon Trail gets enough credit in general. Maybe it's because it's a Minnesota thing. But like 1971 is the first version of Oregon Trail. Didn't it invent the rogue genre in some way? It's like a run-based game. Why is it not given its due in that?
Well, couldn't you say any game that doesn't have saving is a rogue, basically?
No, I would not say that.
No? Okay.
So we should call them all Oregon Lakes.
Is it too much to ask? Yeah.
All right.
Please.
The game Far Lone Sails
Yeah.
is about, it's not a survival game, it's like a puzzle game, but you are in a vehicle moving like to the right, and you have to maintain your vehicle and move it and
That's
make it all the way
right.
to
I
the
played
end.
that. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say Banner Saga had some elements of that too, where you were
Oh.
moving across a landscape and you had to like collect supplies and manage your people.
Yeah, it's inherently difficult just to create new environments for that type of movement.
Yeah.
But there's some way to do it. Get Hello Games on this thing. Come on, here we go. Let's see. Eggs at Dusk says, hello, crew. As a longtime gamer, I've played a lot of superhero games. Even Superman 64. It took 3 months of therapy to get over that one. And many have stated that this is one of the best superhero games out there next to the Arkham games. He's talking about Spider-Man here. Maybe we'll talk about it next. My question is, what superhero deserves a video game? And what do you think would make it work? My thoughts are with Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it'd be an awesome game with the shrinking and expanding going on, especially when it comes to combat. What superhero needs their own game at this point? Who's dying out for it?
I like his idea of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I didn't even think about that. So does this have to be a character that hasn't had a game yet?
Maybe not necessarily.
Or not a great game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, because I was thinking of Thor. Like, I like Thor a lot, and especially with God of War that just came out earlier this year. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of ripe for that style of combat, that sort of setting and world.
Am
but
I just thinking of the Captain America game? There was a Thor game not too long ago.
There was a
right?
Thor
It was.
game.
I
There
played
was a
it.
Captain America game.
And there was also,
I played that Thor game to completion. I reviewed it freelance pre-Game Informer.
It was not
Really?
good.
No, it was bad. Yeah.
Was it based on the movie?
I think
Yeah.
it was around the Dark World, right?
Oh,
Or was that the first one?
good. I don't know, but it was. I mean, it followed like the plot of the first film with a lot of
Maybe it was around the first game.
like exaggerated elements. And
Oh, that super fun plot where for a large section of it, he didn't have his powers and was desperate to get the
Yeah.
hammer back?
well,
Okay.
in the game,
it's like a prequel. I think.
he goes to a bunch of different worlds. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It was also early. It was right when stereoscopic 3D was like the thing. So it was like that was one of its like major selling points on the front of the box.
Yeah.
It's like you can play this game in 3D.
That's good
and you will
notable.
benefit in no way
There
from
is-
doing so.
There's a weird period of like early MCU video games. Remember, they're like 2 different Iron Man games. One of them was on
Yeah,
the Wii, I
by
believe.
Sega.
By Sega. What a weird time that was in the
Yeah.
industry.
Another
So-
superhero that I think would probably even sell better than Thor is Wonder Woman. And it just
Yeah.
seems like that's one that like
Her
seems like a no-brainer at this point.
like
Well,
in the
yeah.
recent film, like her movement abilities of being able to like jump really far, but not fly. Because I don't really want to fly in a video game as a hero. I know you're like giving me a weird look.
No, I get
Hanson.
it.
But like being able to jump around at like leap over.
You
buildings
wanted
with a single
John
bound-
Carter it. Yeah.
Yeah, John Carter's not a comic book guy, but that would be a cool game. Learn
Sure.
how to use your powers.
See
above
ya,
ground.
Wonder Woman. We got John
All
Carter
right,
on our side.
Forget
now.
that.
Sorry, Imran. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say, like, to Kyle's point of there are certain powers that make for good video games, some that don't. The reason why like Spider-Man and Batman work is because they're kind of stronger humans, and they don't necessarily like run ripshod. Like, you can't have a game where Iron Man's blasting through buildings because that's too much work. So, like, for me, a good example would be the current Miss Marvel would be a really good game.
Can she fly? She can
She
fly.
cannot
Yeah,
fly.
she
She
can
just stretches
fly.
and makes her fists bigger.
Well, I mean, sorry, I missed that Miss Marvel. Yeah, I was thinking Captain Marvel.
Yeah, not Captain Marvel, because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
runs into the same problem like a Superman game would have.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait.
No, I think you're right. That would be kind of cool. She has like these stretchy powers, and she can get big and small,
What?
or like stretch, kind of like Mr. Fantastic, and like create shapes out of her body.
Gee.
But she's more creative than Mr. Fantastic is.
So
with
it's
her
like a
powers.
Green Lantern, Mr. Fantastic mix where it's just like different shapes and stuff? Or is that not as.
Yeah, she's not creating new things out of nothing like Green
Okay.
Lantern, but she's creating shapes out of her body. Like her fists will get gigantic and smash people. Something
Weird.
like that.
Okay. And I
And she
think-
makes Simpsons references while she does it.
All right. That seems okay. Do you read a lot of comics, Imran?
I read very few. I get most of my comic like knowledge by like osmosis. So like when people are talking about it near me, then I understand what they're talking about.
Okay.
Wait, do you
holding
like
the newspaper over his face, listening.
Uh-huh.
do you like Miss Marvel because you share a last name?
Yes.
Oh, is that really a
because,
thing?
like,
Yeah.
she's a like Pakistani like Muslim superhero, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah, she's cool.
What's her name?
Kamala
Kamala Khan.
Wow, there we go. Stuart Blessman writes in and says, "Hello, GI crew. I enjoyed watching Andrew Reiner's Twitch stream of Spider-Man on PlayStation 4. It looked like a pretty fun game. But without KG Reiner and others have been about the story, I'm guessing it's going to suffer. I'm guessing it's going to suffer right now. I'm guessing it's going to suffer from what other comic book-based video games have suffered from, a non-original villain. Every developer seems to just use their favorite villain from that hero's stable of villains rather than create something new and unique. So my question is, when was the last time a video game developer created a brand new villain for a comic book superhero to face? Who was it, and what made them memorable? P.S. Arkham Knight does not count."
When you had us prep for this story, I didn't know we had to come up with someone who was memorable.
Oh no, it doesn't have to be memorable. That's not part of it.
Because there was another Batman game pre-Arkham called Sinzu that had Sinzu was a fully original villain created by Jim Lee for Batman, and I think a novel came out with the game to be like, get ready, this is the new big Batman villain.
Really?
And it was just a total bomb. Like nobody
What
cared.
was Sinzu's deal?
I don't even know. He was I think he was just like a kind of like a Yakuza style gang leader or something.
Okay.
And he just totally dropped off the map after the game came out because the game wasn't a hit. So,
Right.
Yeah.
To his point, though, is like he seems to think it's bad that they're using real villains from comics in the games, which I don't know. Like, isn't that you want to play the game starring the hero, but you don't want to see their villains? Like, that just seems a little weird to me. Like, usually I want to see what kind of...
You'd be bummed out if they made a new character?
Not totally bummed out, but it just feels like, I don't know. These characters have been around for 50 plus years in many cases. So it's like the chances of you creating a new character from scratch that can compete with these legacy characters is pretty slim, I think.
I know he says Arkham Knight doesn't count, and maybe it's just because of like the reveal then or something, but I feel like that's worthy of a discussion in some way here, right?
Well, the way they pitched it and the way, I don't know, it's spoilery.
Don't reveal anything specific, but
just the way they use that character is unique enough, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it should count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was worth naming the game after, but yeah, sure.
I don't think I necessarily liked that character in that game, but I'm just
boss
saying,
fight
like,
was not fun. Yeah.
I had one other one, which maybe Imran, you might be able to help me out because you like Steven Universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
The recent Attack the Light, or maybe it was Save the Light, whatever the most recent Steven Universe RPG was, it had a completely original antagonist, and she was cool. I liked her.
There we go.
I don't remember the name.
Not enough to remember her name. Yeah,
that's everything you
but
need to know.
I did like her.
Perfect. All right, Leo, look alive, brother. Elias Roman writes in and says, "Hello, GI crew. My jaw dropped when you were referencing the soundtrack in Parappa the Rapper, because a long time ago I was introduced to Bus Driver, a very interesting artist who happens to rap over the same melody. That song that Turtles Have Short Legs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is Bus Driver rapping over the piano from Turtles Have Short Legs, which is also then ripped off and used in Parappa. Take it away, Leo.
I know this group and they're so up on core. I'm about the at the mom and pop store, and I get both of the songs the top score. I'll see them playing the small hip hop tour. They're treated like sex symbols out the stretch limos, autograph impressed with lead pencils. Now everybody thinks that they're the best new group, as if they're a pop band test tube fluke. They bought the home that's the size of a ballpark.
New rule: all raps have to be over the piano from Parappa and Turtles Have Short Legs.
The thing I was just thinking, I was like, because as much as I think we all like Parappa the Rapper, I like Parappa the Rapper a lot.
He can't really rap.
It's not good rapping. So to hear like what are good beats from Parappa the Rapper with good rapping on top of it, like I want to hear the whole soundtrack like that now, you know?
Oh, they need to do like the Hamilton mixtape, but just for Parappa songs to get like a bunch of different rappers doing it.
I would love that. That'd be amazing.
Come on, rappers, get out there. Get on it.
Get on it, rappers.
Go do something for a change.
Chris Bynum writes in and says, "Guys,
that's us.
When your podcast loads to my phone, the picture is for something called Conversations with Rare Woman." Hilarious.
What?
I don't know what that is or why the feeds would have crossed. But have you guys ever had those weird glitches where just like it'll load in a different image for your podcast or something?
Like probably.
Not that I've noticed.
I have a weird thing where
you?
Yep. Where like this girl that I met once like 8 years ago, for some reason when I added Tim Turry into my contacts in my phone, her picture like auto filled or like put itself into Tim's context. So it's still just like this random girl's face like on her graduation day with a big cap, like graduation cap for Tim every time he calls.
But you
Very
can't really
strange.
tell the difference, so that's why
Yeah, that's right. I don't recognize Tim when I see him now. Anyways, I hope you like Conversations with Rare Woman today. Jordan writes in and says, hey, everyone. Jordan Bays from Indiana here. Hope you're all here and having a great start to September. We're all here, Jordan.
Well, 1 out of 2.
What game series do you think will be the next to finally hit it big in the U.S. after so many attempts? It finally happened to Yakuza in 2017 and then Monster Hunter in 2018. What series will be next? All right, this is a good one. Imran, I feel like you can knock it out of the park with this question. This is your cup of tea.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, there's kind of none left. Like, those are the last 2 really big ones, and then everything else is now just coming over. Like,
yeah.
In previous years, the idea of something like, say, Zonky Zero coming over would be insane, but now, like, there's enough localizers and enough attention being brought to an international scene that, like, now that Yakuza's big, now that Monster Hunter's big, that there's kind of like no real big standout stuff that's Japan only anymore.
Well, other than like Mother 3.
Well, okay, there's games that have been like currently releasing games. There's not that many.
Totally. Yeah, for like sequelized stuff that's happening all the time over there.
So I had one that's, I think it applies, and I hope Imran will back me up on this. One Piece is huge in Japan, right? It's like the biggest manga, biggest anime over there, but really has never found its audience over here in a substantial way. Obviously, there are fans of One Piece. But I am hopeful, and I think that the next game, World Seeker, right, Imran?
Yes.
I am very optimistic about the game. I think it looks really cool to the point that like I think if it's good, it will like create a surge around One Piece. I think.
What kind of game is it?
It is an open world game where you get to use Luffy's like stretch powers to travel and like it almost looks like Arkham because you're actually on like a prison island. It's like so it's like an Arkham style. You even have like a detective vision and stuff like that.
Oh wow!
But then like
it kind of plays like MGS5.
Yeah, like Imran has actually played it, so you should tell us a little more about it because you've actually touched it. I'm only like looking at trailers and stuff.
I mean, it's a straight up like a stealth action game where you're encouraged to stealth stuff. Otherwise, things get a little too chaotic, and it starts like it doesn't really kill you, but it kind of blasts you off past where you're making progress. And when you get into like very traditional, kind of actually Metal Gear style boss fights. That I only got like maybe 20 minutes with the game, but I really enjoyed what I played. Yeah. And like if they can tighten up those controls and they can make the game just like sing with a little bit more polish, it's going to be actually really incredible.
Yeah, and like what they've shown in trailers that really has me excited is like those when we first saw Spider-Man like swinging through the city.
Yeah,
they're showing stuff like Luffy using his stretching abilities to like fling himself over the open world and stuff like that. I'm really excited for it. I think it could be really cool.
Is it CyberConnect or who's making this thing?
It's not CyberConnect.
Ganbarion, who made like the Jump Superstars games on DS.
Oh, odd. Okay.
Yeah, so not like a really exciting dev behind it, but everything they've shown of it looks cool. And Imran liked what he played.
Nice.
So.
This is a little bit different, but I was thinking about Grand Blue Fantasy, which is a big mobile RPG over in Japan, and Platinum now is making like an action RPG called Grand Blue Fantasy : Project Relink. But maybe it'll just be those Platinum fans that are into it. But if like Grand Blue's ever going to make a pretty big splash in the States, the idea of like this action RPG from Platinum releasing a game here, that could do it, right?
Maybe Japanese.
Let's talk about that in 10 days.
In 10 days? Have you played it?
10 days is when the embargo on that expires. Yes.
Have you played it?
I've touched it, yeah.
Touched it. All right. 10 days from now, let's find out if this
you down.
100% correct prediction is happening.
You should ask
They have already announced an American release for that, though, so it is coming.
Oh, great. Okay. Fantastic.
You should ask him the same question, too, in like 2 weeks when she gets back from TGS. Like, what are the biggest games at that show?
Coincide.
Yeah. What embargoes can you spoil for us? No, what were the biggest games from that show that would never get any attention at PAX?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's always fun to see. Okay, this is Francis from San Diego. Wow. Hello, GI crew. The interview with Jeremy Saucier last week at Exploring the Strong Museum of Play is one of the best features GI's ever had.
Wow.
That is very kind. People...
Just the interview?
I don't know. There was a crowd that was really into that interview in particular, which
People
is
like
great to hear. 2
Bens instead of just one Ben performing an interview.
So.
Yeah, you're right.
Jeremy hated us. Yeah. He could not stand as soon as we got off
We
mic.
should just interview each other sometime. We should really drive this thing home.
It's like, you guys are full of yourself. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jeremy was great.
Anyways, Francis says there is also discussion about a possible Game Informer exhibit. This was a joke, hypothetical, and how it helps the gaming culture in many ways. That said, if there were to be a Game Informer exhibit at the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, what feature, items, videos, articles, people would you like for the public to see? What comes to mind are articles, cover stories, reviews, live streams, Brian Shea's lunch, outfit, replays, Pokemon Go experience, anything GI related. What would go in that exhibit? Other than like an animatronic Andy to come over and wag his finger at you.
Well, we have a big room of stuff that we're still sorting through. You know, and there's probably something cool in there.
Do you want to explain what you're talking about?
We have a big room full of stuff that we're sorting
What else do
through.
you need?
No, we had, oh my gosh, help me out with his name.
Frank Cifaldi?
Frank Cifaldi, thank you, on the podcast talking a little bit about it, but he's come by Game Informer's office twice now, and he's going to come back in the future to help us sort through all of the preview code and review code of early games going back to the 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
So that is the obvious thing, if we ever get that fully understanded.
I think it'd be silly just to like have, here's a desk and with a bunch of toys on it.
Here's Miller's desk.
Yeah, I don't know. That feels weird to me if it's like...
Unless it's like a cube of like formaldehyde and like Miller's floating in it, then that would be cooler.
Well, I'm working on that. Yeah.
Well, one thing I like.
I'm not sure if it's a faux pas to mention it, but it's like a fascinating thing from some, like it predates my appearance at Game Informer, but the Rainbow Six cover has always been like a very interesting thing to me.
The
those canceled
Patriots
games.
cover. Yeah, for sure.
That'd be actually cool. Like have just a scene or like here's a set of like how you put covers together, especially some of those older covers. How we put those together. That could
Like
be kinda
writing or
interesting.
the design? Or what are you talking about?
The design of the actual cover art itself / like how a story comes together. Kind of an exhibit on that. Would
It's
be
always
interesting.
so fun. Like I don't always have access to this, but when I do, every once in a while you'll get like the raw Photoshop file or whatever file it is from the developer or publisher for Game Informer's covers. And like the Call of Duty one recently, I have like this 700 meg
Wow.
version of the cover, and you can like turn off all the individual layers. It's so much fun to see that stuff. I love that.
And see what they drew underneath his pants.
Yeah. Oh, you would not believe. Blackout indeed.
Don't turn off that layer.
I was thinking in terms of like the archives and stuff like that, we have something which I want to do something with someday, but we have old audio recordings from like early 2000s from cover story trips on like this old tape format. And so we have interviews with like Mark Cerny talking about Ratchet and Clank and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Just super early. And Jack and Daxter. We also have the Hauser brothers explaining San Andreas for the first time to somebody from the outside. And you get to
that's
hear
cool.
Matt Helgeson like react to them saying, we decided to build a full state, not just one city. And Helgeson's like, what? You can hear his jaw hit the ground.
What? Wait, how do you have that?
I just digitized it real quick because I wanted to hear it.
Well, I mean, how did you ever get access to it? That was
it's in
before your
the
time.
it's in the room with all the
all right.
crap you're talking about. Yeah,
Cool.
The room with the stuff.
Yeah, the room with
that
the
big
stuff,
room
man.
with the stuff?
Yeah, just go
Oh,
over there
why didn't you
sometime.
just say that?
It's filled with treasures.
Oh, we also have a bunch of weird like standees and stuff. There's like a Pikmin. I think it's Pikmin 1 standee that's signed by Shigeru Miyamoto.
It's on the set,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm sure people have noticed that signature long ago, so I'm sorry I brought it up.
Right, it's signed by the best of Nintendo. It's super cool. Yeah, there would be some odd things here and there. We got to get Kyle's daughter in there.
In
Yeah.
formaldehyde, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, throw her in
I
the Miller.
prefer you didn't, but
What are you gonna do?
know, for
Anyways.
the sake of history.
You got it. Cody Clements writes in and says, hello, crew. Cody from Vancouver, Washington here. I was wondering, how often do people at GI read the website and magazine? Does everyone have a pretty good idea of what everyone else is working on? Hail, people.
I mean, we
I
all
think
we all
so.
pretty much read
Yeah.
the magazine in full because we
Yeah.
edit it.
Yeah, we have to edit at the end of
Yeah.
the month. I mean, sometimes you'll be out on a cover story or something and miss the editing phase. So, but I try to like go back and read it after the fact.
Yeah, Imran, I'd imagine you're in the same camp as me where we don't edit that thing. And so do you just
Yeah, we-
also just get an issue and it's like, what is this? This is filled with a bunch of articles from people I know.
I actually do read through it, but like, yeah, we don't do any magazine editing, so it's always fun to actually get it in the mail and be like, oh, I didn't actually know that we were previewing this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious how this matches up to my own perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Or even it's very fun for me because I have no idea what doing for the, or whoever puts the feedback section together.
Gonna bleep that out.
So then seeing like, oh, and then like look at the GI spies that he used, all that stuff. That's fun.
Was that an intentional slip up?
No, but he said he didn't care, so that's fine.
Very smooth.
Anyways, John from Branson, Missouri says, greetings, G informants. I've been listening to old gaming podcasts lately, 2006 or 2009. the golden age of video game podcasts, and this humble podcaster is mine. It got me wondering, what gaming event from a journalism perspective do you find the most fascinating in all of gaming history? This is a broad, interesting question. I think my pick has to be when Activision had bouncer types come and escort Jason West and Vince Zampella from Infinity Ward office. Their firing, the ensuing lawsuit, that whole saga with Call of Duty. Activision fired the heads of the most popular gaming franchise in the world in a very aggressive manner, and the news broke up as it was happening. Gersman Gate and the one Apocalypse was also pretty ridiculous. Those are two biggies. It's interesting that he focuses on the press for the last bit there, but what do you guys think? What's the most fascinating little tidbit from gaming history here?
A recent one for me is just the Half-Life 3 stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe it's not like the biggest of all time, but it's kind of similar to the Call of Duty where it's like the biggest, I mean, honestly, like maybe arguably the most anticipated piece of vaporware, frankly, of all time is like Half-Life 3. What is Half-Life 3? Does it exist? What will it be?
Yeah.
And we essentially got it in like a blog post. Like, it was just the weirdest thing to me.
Remember when some people in the office didn't think that was important or meaningful at all, and it was very frustrating talking about that?
But yeah, that blows my mind still today, that Half-Life 3 essentially happened that way.
You're right. That was amazing. That's a good call.
It's cool that it's out.
It's cool they released Half-Life 3.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally got to read it. I was going to say, like, when BioWare got bought by EA, felt kind of like a big deal at the time.
Huh. Okay.
And it was interesting because we had just done an interview with the doctors, and we were like for the magazine, and the next day they announced they were buying. I was like, well, that would have been nice to know.
Oh, come on,
the
doctors.
interview. Yeah, so we had to go back and like try to reschedule an interview, but maybe it feels a little more important because of that. But like, I think that was a big deal because BioWare was one of the big, especially back then. I think BioWare had a little more cachet.
In terms of purchases, I mean, I don't think we really think about it this much because they still feel somewhat distinct, even though it's merging. But obviously, like Activision buying Blizzard, that was a huge day as well.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
I think it was like over a weekend or something.
Facebook buying Oculus was
that was weird.
Pretty weird.
One that I don't feel like I've paid enough attention to, but really thinking about it, it's like that is an interesting moment in gaming history. And as it was happening, it was like, I'll skim a news story, but just the entire saga of Dota 2 and like Blizzard taking Valve to court. The idea of like two of probably the greatest game developers of all time, like in a legal confrontation about this bizarre fan-made mod, and the fact that Blizzard just lost out, and then Valve gets to make one of the biggest games in the world as a sequel to kind of sort of a Blizzard game. It's such a bizarre saga. Imran, were you following that closely?
I was following it pretty closely, yeah, and it's still like, it's not necessarily ongoing in a legal sense, but like there is still a lot of community talk about who really owns Dota. And the fact that there's not a very clear legal answer to that is amazing to me for something that's that highly prized and that brings up that much revenue.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good special edition podcast at someday to try and dive into that and exactly the full saga there if we can talk to anybody.
I mean, like, we still kind of have a modern version of that with like Fortnite and PUBG going on, and like I don't know what either of them are really doing at this point because like there was that thing where PUBG did sue Epic to try and like over certain things, and honestly they like on the outset it looked like sore loser, but they might have had a case really, but they pulled away because of the actual PR implications of it. But the idea of like from the timeline of Brendan Green goes to Epic to say, hey, I need this or these changes to the engine so we can make this game work, and Epic then just making their own battle royale game from those changes, like that is honestly one of the biggest stories of the last couple of years.
Yeah. And now with Blackout, I feel like they must just realize like, all right, cat's out of the bag. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You think there's going to be another round of lawsuits?
I don't think there'll be another round of lawsuits. I think what their plan is that they launched that fixed PUBG thing about a month ago.
Yeah.
That is how they plan to retain players and hope that they don't leap to Call of Duty or Battlefield.
Yeah. Boy, that's going to be tough. What stands out to you, Imran?
In terms of journalistic stuff, or?
Sure. Yeah, what do you see as the biggest story other than the Fortnite PUBG thing?
The death of Satoru Iwata was a huge one because it was very interesting seeing a journalistic community that's not used to writing obituaries, especially from a very like community-focused public face.
Yeah.
Like actually try and grip that, and like you could actually see in the community and even among the press the state of acceptance and denial and bargaining and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Everyone just pulled back like that one quote of where he said that first. I'm a gamer and all that stuff. They were like the go-to references, and everybody talked about his involvement in Pokemon Gold and Silver. Even though then at Game Freak, when we asked him about that, they're like, not so much.
Yeah.
That's a little confusing.
Yeah, I was one of those people, Imran, that wrote the obituary when it happened, and it was like surprising, and I didn't really know how to react initially. It was strange.
Yeah. Good question, John. Caleb from Dayton, Ohio says, Dear GI Crew, holy hell, am I excited? I just learned that Crystal Chronicles is getting remastered on the Nintendo Switch.
Did this just come in today? Because I haven't even written that story yet.
Yeah, it just came in today.
Are we sure it's Switch?
Yeah.
I thought it was just PS4.
No, PS4 and Switch.
Okay, good.
But what's he excited about?
He says, not sure if you guys are excited or if I'm one of the few nerds out there that flipped their lid when the announcement got leaked. I do have an actual question here, though. How do you think the split screen will be implemented? Personally, I could see Nintendo using their iPhone app for that GBA screen. Thoughts? I don't
think
know.
That's gonna happen, man. I don't think they're gonna put that much effort.
That would be crazy to have the full second screen
You really
experience.
didn't need the GBA for that game. Like, you could easily have put all that information on the screen.
What was on the GBA? Do you remember?
It's like the menus. So basically, your own internal menus are on the GBA screen.
Yeah, you could just pause it and probably pull that up.
Yeah. I'm excited. I've always wanted to play Crystal Chronicles, and I bet when it comes out on the Switch, everyone will be playing it for the first time.
It's really good.
Really?
To an extent.
What?
Are you sure?
Okay, I remember liking it a lot because there was it had a very nice Celtic kind of feel that no other Final Fantasy game at that time hit.
Okay.
And as Final Fantasy was going more sci-fi with 7 and 8, this is a nice return to the old fantasy thing. And the actual final level was very cool.
I have different memories of it, but yeah, it was such a pain to get. First of all, 4 players together. I don't even think I ever got 4. I think I got 3 people together.
I'm sorry.
And you have to, I know. And I only have 2 other friends. But you have to have your GBA and all the chords and the game and a GameCube, right?
Yeah.
I think it was GameCube.
Yeah.
So it was just a pain to put all that stuff together. And then I thought the game was just kind of okay.
Yeah, but after all that effort, you have to convince yourself that it's great.
I know, yeah. A lesser mind might convince himself.
Right. It's like everyone that climbs Mount Everest then has to say, oh, the view's good.
Yeah, it was worth all that pain and suffering.
They made another one.
Yeah, a sequel for Wii.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was not on Wii. It was on DS, right?
I'm leaning DS too.
All right.
I want to say it was called Ring of Fates.
There's no way of knowing.
I'm going to cut. We're going to figure this out.
I'm pretty sure it's Wii. I would put down 50
There was
cents on
the
it.
Wii game called Crystal Bearers that is in the same universe.
That wasn't a
but not
sequel?
exactly the same game.
Oh, that's same universe. Come on.
Hang on.
Same
So the
universe?
actual sequel of the same kind of action RPG is DS, but the same universe as Crystal Bearers on Wii.
All right. I guess I didn't even need to look it up. Aaron, you just got it, man.
Do you want to repeat that for your edit?
But there was no edit, Kyle.
Oh, no.
Hey, do you guys remember World of Final Fantasy from a couple years ago?
Yeah.
No one talks about that. It was a fine RPG that they really it just completely flew under the radar. It was one where you stacked the different characters together.
Some Pokemon
There's multiple
stuff in
different
there.
chibi art styles.
Wait,
and
am I
stuff.
thinking of the same one? It's on the phone?
No.
No,
What am
it
I
was a
thinking of?
console game. I think
It was
Joe
on
reviewed
Vita
it.
as well.
Oh, wait, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Because I
It was on
remember Dan
PS4 Vita,
Tack.
I think.
Dan Tack lost his mind. Or,
Yes.
as much as Dan Tack does lose a mind over
Right.
something.
Lose one mind.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm really excited about that. And then he repeats
better
it.
than PUBG.
And then you have
And
to
you
go, are
know
you
he's
serious?
serious.
You're not kidding.
No, I'm not joking around.
He said he was more excited about that than 15 because they came out
Yeah.
pretty close to each
He
other.
was.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny.
That was so weird. Also, the director of that game, we interviewed him while out there on the cover story trip, and it was a very fun example of him just having some crazy history where he's like, yeah, I worked on Final Fantasy 7. Yeah, I animated Yuffie and Vincent. It's such a weird specific thing. I'm like, that's awesome. I love their animations, I think.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
when she did that thing.
Well, Yuffie does have that very distinct animation. Remember, she goes,
yeah.
and punches rapidly a couple times.
I
Takes
always
the wind out of you.
wasn't quite sure what she was doing with that.
No one knows.
cross thing.
Well,
Yeah.
if only you could have asked somebody.
By the way, great animations, but what were those?
Nice giraffe. Oh, it's an elephant.
Oh, it's a World of Final Fantasy release date. Mason Cowell from Chattanooga, Tennessee, woo, says, hey, Ben and friends, my question today is, if you could take one game and completely change its graphics to something else, what would you choose? For example,
Force.
what's that?
That's a good
Oh, Jump
answer.
Force? That's great. For example, I'm loving Into the Breach right now, and I love the pixel graphics, but I would also love to watch the mechs and bugs fight it out with incredible modern graphics and animations. What about you?
It's a weird.
I was going to
Not
say I'll
question.
probably get crucified, but Minecraft. was a
What
game
are you
that I
talking about?
don't particularly like the art style for. I know everybody loves it, but that voxel look just looks kind of gross to me.
Wow. That is.
think
Have
it's a
we all
good
just
answer,
convinced
actually.
ourselves that Minecraft is a good-looking game because
Yes.
it's so distinct and stylish? But like, Notch wasn't an artist; he was just winging it.
Yeah, I think it was. He designed it that way on purpose, obviously, because it was easier. And I'm not gonna, I'll give him some slack for that. Yeah, you
Well,
gotta do
it's
what you
also
gotta do.
don't forget easy. It's just it's clarity.
Well-
it's like when you only deal functionally with
Right.
cubes. Of course, you need to make everything cubes.
Right.
So leave them alone. But you would prefer even like the Dragon Quest Builders art style to
Oh,
something
yeah.
cleaner that would also have that same effect.
Yeah, 100%.
Minecraft 2.
Yeah, that's right.
It's coming.
Come on, bring it on.
Did you guys see? I don't know where it was, but at some point Miyamoto was interviewed or gave a presentation the last couple months, and he talked more about Minecraft, which is always fascinating. But the story came out a little while ago that he was commenting on Minecraft, and he said, "Oh, we were experimenting with a block game on the N64." But in this interview now, he says like, "Oh, we didn't really know what it was going to be. It could have been a racing game. Like we were just experimenting with building blocks as a foundational aspect of games for the N64." But then he had a weird line where he said, "I really wish Minecraft would have been made in Japan."
Weird.
That's an interesting take.
Well, I mean, the very first version of Zelda was people building like dungeons for each other. for them
Oh,
to
that's
explore,
right. Okay.
Which always felt kind of like Minecraft-y to me.
Basically Minecraft.
He also said, probably in the same presentation or whatever, that one of the reasons they were like prepared to go forward with Breath of the Wild being dual analog was because kids play Minecraft, and they're like, okay,
Oh,
fine,
wow.
kids clearly understand how to do
Oh,
dual
that's
analog.
interesting.
We don't need to simplify the camera controls for them, which I thought was kind of cool.
Super fun. Do you guys have art styles in mind that you want changed? Now's your chance.
No, they're all perfect.
Did you guys like the art style? I liked the graphics, but the art style in the Arkham games was sometimes a
Oh,
little
interesting.
too
You know what?
bulky and a little bit too like sexy. Like
Yeah,
I was
It's
like,
too edgy.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
They're
is
too-
Batman was too sexy.
I was like, tone it down.
Come on.
Batman.
That's actually a good because they are very bulky, muscular. Everyone is like super bulky and muscular.
Yeah.
It would be cool to have it a little bit more streamlined and not quite as like more like animated series kind of look or something.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
that
for
would've been
sure.
good.
Just redo everything with the animated series aesthetic.
Because you could
Like Rise of Sinzu.
Yeah. Do
That's
that.
classic.
think in Arkham City, you could have the skin for Batman himself, where you could have the animated look, but
Right.
you couldn't change the world.
Yeah.
Eric from Hudson, Michigan says, "Hello, Ben. Hello. I've been a huge fan of Pokemon since day one, spending hundreds of hours with each game, but I've always had trouble accepting the concept of Pokeballs. I know the developers have explained that Pokemon like being in the balls, but come on! The idea that this legendary, majestic Pokemon is now trapped inside a ball for all time seems insane, and when I farm eggs in the hopes of hatching a shiny Pokemon, I will have hundreds of Pokemon sitting in boxes that'll never see the light of day. I cannot accept this, so I've replaced the game's explanation with my own. Pokeballs are actually teleportation devices that warp the Pokemon to you from wherever they are in the world. They enjoy the normal life that had them doing whatever they like, and when called upon by the trainer, they get zapped there immediately. The act of catching is the Pokemon deciding that they respect you as a trainer and are agreeing to these teleportation terms.
So what happens when you first capture them? Because it's teleporting them somewhere, right? Where does it spit them out to? The first time you
Oh, I
capture 'em?
see.
The farm upstate.
It's just like directly behind you.
And you never turn around.
Yeah, just don't turn around and keep on walking. It's like Oregon Trail, man. You're on a straight ahead Route 22. Here we go. I think that'll work. Because what have they said, Kyle? It's like, oh, it's
They
cozy
said they
for
like
them.
being in there. They've said,
Yeah.
but with being very vague.
It's probably like Doctor Who. It's like bigger in there, bigger on the inside, right?
I think so too. And
I think they go into a pleasant coma. Personally,
You think it's like a drug thing? They're like getting zapped in the brain?
it just pauses their life.
it's just, you know what probably has polluted all of our minds with this concept is like the idea of the Pokeball. It's basically just a genie. It goes back, thousands of years.
Yeah.
101 nights or whatever the hell that story is. But I think like Aladdin specifically, how much the genie complained about being in the lamp. I bet if that wasn't part of pop culture, nobody would feel bad for these Pokemon. Him being like, oi, and all that stuff, it polluted all of our minds.
Huh.
I mean, it's like
Blame
a cat
Robin
carrier
Williams.
case, but smaller.
Right.
Has there ever been a genie Pokemon? Genie-looking Pokemon?
Yes. I forgot the name. It's, I think, 5th gen.
Is it? Well, even
Sounds
like
right.
the pre-evolution for Jinx, I don't know. I don't know.
We don't talk about Jinx.
Well, it's still canon. Sam from Inver Grove Heights, Minnesota. Hello. Hey, GI crew. Do you guys have relatives who don't understand your love of video games? Have you ever been able to get them to understand why? I don't understand why a lot of non-gamers view playing games as a waste of time, but reading books, appreciating art at museums, or watching sports is an acceptable use of your time.
I'm glad he said watching sports, because those first two are kind of highly regarded.
Appreciating art at museums.
I don't know.
Looking into the eyes of your loved ones.
Having kids. Going to the moon.
I mean, games just take longer, right? Generally.
I don't know. There's a lot of people wasting a lot of time watching a lot of bad shows on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
True.
I mean, I put it up there with watching TV or movies. Like, it's a hobby, but it's also like a form of leisure entertainment. And like any leisure entertainment, you can do it too much, and maybe that's a bad thing. But
Right. And look, 95% of the stories are bad. But still,
yeah, but still, come on, guys.
it's a worthy medium.
Yeah, no, I think it's fun. Yeah, it's.
Hang on, stop. Are
Wait,
you on the record?
what was the original question? Hey, no. Hanson, this cannot go on the record.
Games are fun.
This cannot go on the record.
The question is, why do people not put it in those terms? I had a case recently where I was talking with a dear old friend of mine that I love very dearly. But I was explaining why I needed to get back into the Twin Cities instead of staying at home over the weekend and stuff. And it's like, well, I got to go back because we do this thing. It's kind of like a book club, but it's for games. I need to get to a certain point in Spider-Man so I can talk about it in the game club. And when I said it's a book club, but for games, this young hip lady just goes, oh no. Like, was just like disgusted about it. It's like, well, wait, what's the point of any sort of club? Like, this is a good communal
it's
experience.
also a person who doesn't really know anything about games.
She's
presumably,
played plenty of games, which is very frustrating.
But do you think that they understand that there is a story being told?
Yes.
Because I think most people who aren't super familiar with games just see this like loop of like, they look at Fortnite. It's like, it looks like you're doing the same thing constantly.
No,
you're not progressing at all.
I hear you, but no, this person's hip enough. They know there's a story
right.
in games. They just don't have a respect for it. There's some weird disconnect that happens every once in a while.
Weird. No, I've encountered that too, for sure.
What are we gonna do? How do we change the world?
Just make them play Limbo.
You know what's funny?
What?
One of the games I played with my friend was Inside. We beat Inside together. So
that
cool.
to me,
and that didn't convert her.
To me, that's the game that like if you it is anyone can play it, and it is not. There's nothing embarrassing about that game for a non-gamer to play. I feel like I'd give that game to my dad, and he'd be like, "Wow, that was really impressive."
Yeah.
Have
I told you about baseball though, son?
Yes, Dad.
I was on a date
Oh.
semi-recently, and I was telling the person, like, I was playing Nier Automata to them.
Oh,
and
no.
Because the idea of, like, okay, how would robots create God if there was no God?
Check,
like,
please.
That's a compelling thing to, like, think about.
Uh-huh.
But when you start it with, okay, so there's robots and there's androids. And I'm like, oh, God, this sounds so stupid. What am I saying?
What has happened?
Let's just order.
Yeah. I'm in a very similar camp where I was trying to explain Final Fantasy VII. It's like, oh, what's it about? It's like, here's what it's like. It's about, I don't know,
guy,
saving...
his name is Cloud, but his name doesn't have to be Cloud. You can change it to something.
Yeah, they're environmentalists. That's cool,
I think we
right?
talked about it for 6 hours on a podcast.
Just
so
go
you
listen
wanna
to that.
these?
Yeah. As we try to retrace Cloud's past in a coherent way. But yeah, we'll change the world, Sam. Send him this episode of the podcast. Chandler from Detroit says, hi, Ben, Hans's son. I have a relative, a great-great-great-grandpa or something from Norway or Sweden or whatever, whose name was Hans Hansen, which seems very stupid. Anyways, rest in peace, buddy. I'm in a situation that most of you probably will never experience. I really would like to play Spider-Man, but I don't own a PS4. Maybe one day I will, but for now I do not. This wouldn't be too terrible of a problem to have if it weren't for the fact that this game seems to be all you guys want to talk about on the podcast. My question is, what do you guys think I should do? Should I listen to your Game Club discussion coming up soon on the podcast and the possible spoiled content you release, or should I remain spoiler-free despite the fact that it might be years before I eventually play this game?
Years? I don't know. I'm of the camp that I should interrupt Kyle.
No,
So I'm going to keep talking.
I keep talking first. Too much, frankly.
Yeah. I'm of the camp that, like, spoilers aren't as big a deal as we tend to make them out to be. So, like,
I don't know.
well, and other people have a different opinion and can be wrong. But, like, if you're interested in a game, like, there's nothing wrong with, like, kind of absorbing some of that content and seeing, like, what is this exciting? And then if you're like, I know enough and I want to go in with a little bit clean, you can stop listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, like, start listening to the Game Club.
And see how it tickles you?
And see how it tickles
If
you.
it's really going to be years, and it's not going to be a thing of like 6 months from now I'm going to get a PlayStation 4. If it's going to be years, I'd say go ahead and listen to it.
Right.
it'll be a fun conversation. You'll feel a little bit more hip, a little bit more in the loop about specifically what this game is doing. And by the time you eventually play it, it'll be like a distant memory. You won't even remember any specifics. Trust me, this conversation coming up with the podcast is going to be forgettable as all hell. We guarantee that.
Oh,
100%.
It'll be a good way to fall asleep at night.
Yeah, that's a tough one, though.
I like trying to hold out if I can.
Yeah?
Would you hold out for years, though?
Yeah.
I mean, if you hold up past like the first 3 months, the zeitgeist is pretty much over, and you're not going to run into spoilers randomly.
That's true.
Like the first time I completed Chrono Trigger was when it released on DS, and I was very happy to have a lot of its major beats not spoiled for me. So,
like, you still haven't read your wedding vows because you don't want to get spoiled on how the marriage ends?
yeah,
Yeah, why did you write about that in the vows, by the way? That was very prescient.
It was very difficult to write that and not be spoiled by it.
What do you guys like for Email of the Week?
Oh man,
I like a journalistic one, like the biggest event.
I
that was
think
good.
that's a very good
Yeah.
one. I completely agree. I also like, games that might be coming to the West. But yeah, I'm completely with you. That is John from Branson, Missouri. Congratulations,
Congrats,
Branson.
John.
Everyone's favorite, up on the big board.
First time?
First time. Hell yeah. For now, by the way, podcastgameinformer.com for all emails in the future. We'd love to hear your thoughts. For now, let's get spoiling Spider-Man. Let's get to it. So this is going to be spoilers for everything until the end of Act 1, which is a big political speech / rally that happens about 4 hours into the game or
Talking
so.
through that whole mission, right? To the end
Through
of
that sequence, yes, until you are playing again in a big way. So, without further ado, here is the first episode of the Spider-Man Game Club.
All right, here we go.
Hello and welcome to the first installment of the Spider-Man Game Club, GI Game Club, that is. We're covering everything within the first act of Spider-Man. No bones about it. Everything up until the big political speech / rally. I'm here. Leo Vader's here.
Hi.
Out of the booth, onto the table. Kerplat!
Swinging in.
Yeah, then we have Ben Reeves.
Here I am.
Okay, we have Cyril Vasquez.
Less enthusiastic, definitely.
All right, now let's get serious. Here's our last cast member.
You might remember him from Destiny 2 Forsaken.
That's
okay. Kyle's in the booth. Kyle, is this my camera? All right. Dear camera, I want to make some... Well, not quite.
Doing a bad job.
Camera comedy. Doing a great job, Kyle. Here's the thing. YouTube, people listening, we like Spider-Man. I have a feeling we're all going to like this game. We're not experts on comic books. Ben Reeves has read a lot of them. We're going to get things wrong. We're going to ask questions that I bet some people out there on the internet will say, that's the dumbest Spider-Man question I've ever heard in my life. Please forgive us for our sins as we forgive those who trespass against us, as
Amen.
Aunt May said, as Green Goblin flew through her window that one time, which was very funny. Those eyes, those horrible eyes.
Do you think comic nerds are the most like religious of like truth-sayers?
I would say they're the greatest folks under the sun, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking
They are
about
the
Spider-Man. Here we go. Ben Reeves, just setting the table here. I assume everybody outside of Ben Reeves is in the same camp. We've probably seen every Spider-Man movie, love the cartoon.
I read the comics for a little while
great.
during the
Okay,
Civil
cool.
War era. But
Okay, and then Reeves, what is your history with Spider-Man?
I used to be him. I crawled up inside of his skin. When I was a kid, I actually hated Spider-Man just because like the spider thing. Because I don't like spiders, is what I'm saying.
Oh, so it seems like, yeah, very defining.
throw a little man in the mix though, and he's into it now.
But yeah, then I got into comics and I was like, I might check out the Spider-Man thing, and quickly became like my favorite character. I would say of all time.
Really?
I
So
would
this is
say
a very holy thing for you. You are one of
beyond-
those religious nuts for
I would say
Spider-Man.
beyond comic books even. He's like the coolest character, like fictional character.
Holy God. And you know a lot about the comics history, but again, I'm sure we're going to get some things wrong.
Yes. Among my friends, I'm an expert, but also I'm sure there's people watching who are going to laugh at things I say.
There are people
Okay.
who are going to go look at the Wikipedia article and fact check us and say, you're wrong because I know all of this
I
stuff.
get it. We can't complain out of the gate. Again, podcast@gameinformer.com, all feedback, all thoughts. That's what the Game Club's all about. Big community playthrough. So I have, oh my gosh, so many pages of notes, my own notes, things people have written in. Everybody wrote in with amazing things. And the best part is,
Spectacular things.
it was true. Everyone was like specific. It's everything I could hope for. They say, what's up with this detail? And I'm going to talk about this detail for a little bit. And that is the best case scenario for reading on the Game Club instead of a scattershot of everything. So be specific. Let's get nitty gritty. That's the point of a Game Club. Out of the gate. Let me open with a little email I got here.
You guys are idiots.
How did they know already?
Oh, man.
Ben Reeves did like Spider-Man as a child.
Oh, no.
Joshua Minette writes in and says, this game club is surreal. Spider-Man is the first game club game that I've worked on. I've been looking forward to hearing what everyone's thoughts are on the game.
Oh.
So he's in the QA team at Insomniac.
The QA is probably the weakest part of the game so far.
I was not happy with the QA.
I was not assured by the quality of that game at all.
Anybody else that works at Insomniac, feel free to write it. This will be fun. Podcastinggameinformer.com
cool.
if you have thoughts or corrections.
That's awesome.
Out of the gate, though, Leo Vader, you were on the cover story. You did the rapid fire questions, which I have to say, after starting this game, I went back and watched again, and I was again amazed at how good you are in that video.
Thank you.
Just unbelievable. But what do you think about Insomniac Spider-Man?
Great game.
You're loving it.
Yeah, it's good. I'm less into the story than I am. It goes combat, swinging, story for how into it I am right now.
Oh, that's a very good ranking.
Oh,
okay.
that's kind of cool.
Personally, I think it might be swinging, number 1, story, and then combat 3.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm swinging combat story.
Okay. I think I'm with Leo. I think combat swinging story.
I was really surprised how much I like the combat.
Yeah.
Wow.
It feels very unique to me. Like, they did a really good job of making a fighting system that feels totally unique to Spider-Man. Like, it couldn't be in any other game, obviously. There's so much web shooting.
Right. And it really is funny diving into this game of like, oh, I guess the Spider Sense is just the perfect counterattack notification.
Right.
Like, it fictionally, it works out so well.
They kind of stole it for the Arkham games, and it works good there, but yeah.
No, Batman
Sense.
also has spider sense in the comics.
Yeah.
His enemies do,
He
yeah.
built it, but it still technically works.
They all have like a collective, sort of creature sense. You know,
Yes.
like
Reeves, how are you feeling about this game? Broad sense.
Overall, yeah, I'm so far really liking it. There are things that bother me.
Wow.
And it's easy to like get hung up on those, but when I look at the big picture, like and I'm not done with it yet, but like it's probably the best Spider-Man game so far that I've ever played.
Right.
And like there's heights that reach really close to the Arkham games.
Yeah.
But then it's like got a lot more, I want to say maybe kind of junky stuff, like some stuff that like just feels like busy work.
Some junk in Spider-Man's trunk. And,
Exactly.
And
That's
we're gonna
what I'm
talk,
trying
in his trunk specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all that stuff. That'll be fun. Where are you at, Serial?
I am really enjoying it. Like I think I agree with Reason that there are sort of a couple rough edges that I'm having issues with. I struggled a little bit with the combat at first, just because
Yes,
the button
yes.
placement's
We're
a
gonna
little
get
weird.
into it, buddy.
But I think I have a weird thing because I don't think it's as good as the Arkham games at their best, but I feel like it is a better embodiment of Spider-Man than the Arkham games were for Batman.
Yeah,
Wow,
I mean,
that's a bold
Batman
claim.
games
Okay.
didn't feel like Spider-Man games at all.
Yeah.
Rocksteady, get your head out of your
I think
asses.
this does a better job of channeling Spider-Man than I think the Arkham games do of channeling Batman.
Okay. All right. That's a great take. Overall, yeah, I think I was a little bit slower out of the gate, especially with combat. Like, it was pretty early on in those early fights. I was like, I don't know if I want a whole game of this. I don't know about the combat. I'm getting there now, and I'm enjoying it more and more. And we'll definitely dive into everything, but I'm enjoying it even more than I thought I would, especially because I was nervous about the writing in particular, and that I think has exceeded my expectations. We'll dive into all this stuff. Okay, Jordan Edmond, big thumbs up here from Radford, Virginia, says, hello, Ben and crew. So far, I'm absolutely loving Spider-Man. It lives up to the hype, and I feel like it can only get better from here. Well, we don't know, but we'll see. The greatest moment so far to me has been the opening of the game. Seeing Peter running around his apartment, suiting up is great.
Feel so alive.
Was that the song during the cover story trip?
I believe it's the same song.
Okay, I was very curious because I don't know that song. Who is that?
I don't know either.
Okay. My non-gamer roommate was watching me play, and we both lost our S as Spider-Man jumped out this window and right into web-slinging gameplay. What's happening? I don't think I have played a game that has such immediate, gratifying gameplay mechanic that still feels as fun at hour 8 as it did from the beginning.
Well,
That's
I hope
amazing.
you find your S.
I love that opening too. I didn't expect to get such a thrill out of it, but just like that slow shot of going through his apartment, which I think you guys even mentioned before on the podcast from the cover story trip.
Yep, we saw that.
But there are
cutscene.
so many details in there where it is just like, it's just a good table setting. Here's exactly where he's at. You got the jars with no money in them, panning over to, hey, this villain's locked up here. It sets the scene exactly where you need it, and then bam, gameplay.
And it totally works whether you know Spider-Man or not.
Yeah.
Like, it gives you information either way that you appreciate.
Yeah.
For sure. The one weird thing is I think it works and you have to do it. Like I love the idea of setting this in Spider-Man's Prime and all that stuff, but there was an odd disconnect obviously out of the gate, but there's so much good stuff you can overrule it. But just that idea of Spider-Man, he's saying like, I need to take care of Fisk right now, take care of it so I can get on with my real job. Let's just get over this whole thing, get it over with quick. And and then he goes out the window, and I assume everybody in the world playing is like, how can I avoid this mission? How can I just swing around and mess around with the mechanics for as long as possible, right?
Did you try to get out of it? I didn't even try to.
Oh, well, yeah, I was like trying to swing around the city and just like mess and get a feel for the swinging for as long as possible, but it's like you're leaving mission area.
The missiles are coming your way, Spider-Man.
But it gives you enough of a sandbox to play around with to get used to the controls. But what did you guys think first feeling at getting out into the city there?
I feel like I more or less beelined it to the mission actually, but
What the hell? Am I alone?
You might be alone. That's really funny. I mean, you're
just
probably not
because
alone, but I didn't do that.
I think it instructs you really early on of like, hey, the first prompt is literally like press R2 to swing, basically. But I feel like I got enough out of the. I did do a little dawdling when I was kind of experimenting with like how quickly can you turn on a dime, and it's pretty fast. Like if you rotate the camera and he just immediately swings in the opposite direction. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that initial opening. But yeah, I don't know that I explored as much as maybe you did.
Okay.
I'm curious, when's the last time you played a Spider-Man game?
That's a good question. I don't know if I even have one answer for it. I don't know if I've ever played a Spider-Man game.
Wow.
I did, because it popped up in my YouTube feed. I watched like reviews, I think it was like IGN reviews for Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, which was fun to look back at now. Where it's like, hey, they also built up the whole city. The swinging also looks fun in that. But no, I don't think I've ever played a Spider-Man game, now that I think about it.
I don't remember when the last Spider-Man game was, like, 3 years ago maybe? Sounds right.
Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2, would that have been the last one? I think so. So maybe more than that, but yeah.
But I've been reviewing them for, like, the last 10 years, a lot of them. And so to me, like, the swinging around the city, like, I think this is the best the Spider-Man game so far. But it's not novel like it was back in, say, Spider-Man 2 days.
Right.
Where it was like, oh my gosh, this is mind-blowing. I can swing around the city and it's awesome. So for me, kind of, to Leo's point, is I kind of just beelined it to that first mission. Because like swinging around the city is fun and the best it's been, but it's also like I've been doing it for 10 years.
Wow.
To some level. Like
Okay.
to mediocre levels, but I've still been doing it.
Yeah. I feel like the readers overall are so madly in love. Like so many people had that sentiment of like never using fast travel. I'm never getting sick of swinging around.
I'm not complaining about it by any means. I'm just saying like it's not novel to me, and I think I kind of wonder if like this is maybe the first Spider-Man game for a lot of
That's
people.
probably what it
or
is,
the first one in a long time.
Right. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I guess, would be the closest I could come up with. And that it didn't give really that swinging freedom sensation that I was
Lego
hoping
Marvel
for.
superheroes you could swing around.
Oh,
that's a good
actually, yes, you're
could
totally
be it.
right.
Yeah.
That counts. Dylan Edmonds says, hey, I'll skip formal introductions and get right down to business. Thank you. I think that this Spider-Man is one of the best, most accurate portrayals ever outside of the spectacular Spider-Man TV
Just like
series.
the real Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The way Spider-Man interacts with all civilians like he's known them forever is something we don't see too often, as well as Spider-Man beating himself up when others start to get in trouble. I haven't really seen that side of Spider-Man in any medium for quite some time. Peter Parker is someone who clearly cares for the people in the city and feels absolutely horrible at the thought of them getting into trouble. This game is some of the best writing I've ever had the pleasure of playing through, and all the little bits of dialogue add up to make this Spider-Man the best I've seen in a long time. Anyway, it's time to get back to kicking demon butt. Thanks for reading. Thanks to Insomniac for making such a wonderful story. Yeah, Reeves, does it feel 100% like Spider-Man for you, just personality-wise and knowing the character so well?
Yeah, I would say tonally it feels pretty good, and I don't know. I guess I'm surprised to hear some people like gushing over the writing. I think the writing's good. It's not bad, but it's not. I wouldn't put it up there with like say Uncharted or something as like
No, I wouldn't
quality
either.
storytelling.
Well, no, I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I'm trying to think of even like the writing in Arkham. I guess I like it more. I think like the little emotional moments have hit me a little bit harder. I'm not weeping necessarily, but also I was just really concerned about quips. When you have a character that's quipping all the time, as Leo, you asked in the rapid fire question, which I think was originally a Jeff Cork question. It was, does Spider-Man think he's just the funniest MFer? And Brian Inter, our creative director, his answer was Spider-Man does. Peter Parker does not.
Yeah.
Which is a fun. So I was so worried about like if it's just basically Deadpool here as he's going around the city. I don't want it. But the jokes have mostly landed. Like I have not winced really once, I don't think.
Yeah, and as far as I remember, he doesn't really quip all that much during the actual combat, which is I think sort of the biggest avenue where that can get really annoying is if he constantly makes the same remarks.
If he repeats it. But there's still, during combat, everyone says a line like, I'm feeling a little punchy today and stuff like that. Okay, I can move on. That's fine.
Couple times where he repeats a line. A couple times you're like, I feel like I just heard that like 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
I'm like, I kind of wish they had looped some of those out. But yeah, I don't think I'm cringing at any of the lines.
Yeah.
Like I am right now.
Like to me, the weakest part of the writing so far has been Fisk's writing. Like his dialogue stuff seems so hokey, like in comparison to how natural a lot of that stuff feels outside of him. He feels like this. I mean, he feels like the biggest sort of comic booky villain to steal a line. But
well, also just his heavy foreshadowing of like, Spider-Man, if you get rid of me, all the other villains will run amok in the town. You don't want to do this.
It's like one step above like, you'll rule this day, Spider-Man. Like it's not his dialogue. I don't think it's very good, but I think
I think you kind of want a little bit of that with Kingpin, though, don't you?
But it felt out of place because especially for the rest of that game does a pretty good job of not being hokey, whereas he feels totally like just completely out of left field for me.
Speaking of foreshadowing, there's a little line, I think at the end of the first mission, where you hear the first J. Jonah Jameson radio.
Yes, exactly.
Where he's like, I'll get you to say something nice about me one of these days,
Yeah,
JJ. I'm like, oh, in the third act. Great.
That's very true. On the writing here, oh my gosh. Okay, Ethan Evans from Missouri writes in and says, I was just wondering how people were feeling about the dialogue and relationships in the game, specifically the interaction between Peter and, I guess, the side characters. The writing in this first act has seemed really strong to me, and I felt immediate investment in Peter's relationship with Octavius, May, Mary Jane. I think I particularly noticed in that quick mission you do with Jeff Davis towards the end of Act 1, there's nothing really special about it, but something about the warmth and camaraderie between Peter and Jeff made my stomach clench at the end of the mission when Jefferson takes down the last demon. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw Peter help him up and realized that he hadn't been shot. Of course, it didn't take long for me to see the writing on the wall and where this character is eventually going. But just, the interactions between characters. I agree. I think that mission, just jumping ahead a little bit, with Jefferson Davis, which, is that his name in the comics?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's Miles.
Odd choice, but sure. But I think that mission I was also struck by, like, oh, that's one of my favorite sections of the game, actually, is doing that little warehouse sequence with him. I think it was really sweet.
He was actually a cool character, like, because I feel like I liked him in this game almost more than I liked him in the comics ever, too. They did a good job of making him personable and, like, a cool character.
But also just, like, the little human details of, obviously, you might see where this is going, that it's not going to end up well for him, but at the same time, him just being so nervous about the speech and that being, like, a big recurring refrain. It's like, that's a nice humanizing little touch.
Sure.
And then also, I was struck in that mission when, you help him up the elevator and all that stuff. But then there's like a 15-foot gap. And he's like, don't worry about this one. I've got it, Spider-Man. And then just like leaps across that huge chasm. I was like, good God, man.
Especially
you have Spider-Man there.
Especially after you had to help him up with the elevator at first. And then he's like, no, I got this jump.
You should want to be swung across that gap by Spider-Man. Yeah. Like, don't risk it, dude. Are you crazy?
Maybe he'll hang upside down and kiss you.
Yes, it's really a best case scenario.
They do have a riff on that, though. Like, at some point, he and a bad guy are hanging upside down. I want to say it's Electro, isn't it?
I think it's Kingpin at the end of the first one when you fall through the ceiling.
Oh, okay.
And you're hanging
he's
together.
like, oh, she should be kissed now.
Oh, that's right.
But it's stupid because they're both upside down.
Yeah.
One of them needs to be right side up.
Spider-Man, you're wrong about this fact.
You blew it, Insomniac.
Yeah, they blew it.
Learn how to kiss, dude.
Did you guys know who Jefferson was?
I assumed it. Okay, when he's like, boy, my son's a big fan of you. You mentioned his son twice in like the span of 5 minutes, and then I was like, okay. Like, I know that like Miles has a black dad and like an Asian mom, and so I was like, okay, factoring in, I got it now.
Oh, I had no idea.
Well, and I kind of wonder, even just this day and age, like how big a character is Miles Morales?
Well, that's a great question. We actually have somebody who wrote in on that saying a very, very prescient thing. Oh, here it is. He says...
Because I wonder if some people are just like, why are they spending so much time on this character?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Juan Benitez writes in and says, hey, is Miles supposed to be Miles Morales? His last name wasn't Morales. But yes, can you explain how that works? Is Morales then his mom's name?
Oh, good question. I don't even... Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Wait, so is a Hispanic mother then?
Yeah, but she totally looks Asian in the game. So that threw me because I was like, oh, they changed her model now. She's Asian, I guess?
Okay.
So in the game I don't even know. Did they refer to him as Miles Morales?
That's a good question.
I don't
think you know his last name.
I think at some point.
In the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but they do say Miles.
Yeah.
They say Miles.
Like his friend calls him over as Miles and all that stuff. Yeah.
Which is funny because
that character.
Like you first see him when he's like, Spider-Man's basically doing that the one mission from the E3 demo, and Miles sort of like has a scene where he texts someone, and at first I was like, they're spending I thought he was just going to be like a cameo because I hadn't figured out the dad thing yet.
Yeah.
So I thought I was like, why are they spending so much time on this cameo? But then towards the end, this character is going to be a part of the story.
Yeah,
at least for now.
Sure. Yeah. His origin story, Reeves, in the comics, is this pulling? Is it remixing? How does it reference it here?
I mean, at this point in the game, I don't know where they're going with it.
Yeah.
I mean, in the comics, it was part of a different universe to begin with, but there was like another spider that he got bit by from the same batch of spiders that that Peter got bit with.
Right.
So that's how he ended up with very similar powers.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, I don't know where they're going because I kept wondering. I was like, oh, is he going to have powers or not?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you're going to use lifting stuff at the end of Act 1 there. It's
Yeah.
like he's struggling a lot. You think it would come out
weak.
now.
Yeah, he's pretty feeble.
Yeah.
Come on.
Not
the
amazing
third
at all.
strongest character in the Marvel universe.
Don't do it. Quentin from Moreno Valley, California says, hello, straight to the point. This is looking far into the future, but given the amount of screen time he's receiving, do you think Miles Morales will be a fully playable character in Spider-Man 2? Surely he will be the final DLC in the city that never sleeps, but it seems like Insomniac is really setting him up for bigger and better things. Obviously, the sequel will still star Peter Parker, but I can see them switching between characters just like they're already doing, except this time with 2 Spideys for the price of 1.
That would be weird if they have the character switching, because how different are their powers?
They're very similar. Miles can turn invisible,
Okay.
and he has this like, what's he call it? Spider shock, where he can like touch you, and then a couple seconds later you get like shocked and paralyzed.
So it would be, meaningfully different, but more stealth missions in the next
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's interesting. How bold would it be though if at the end of the game they kill Peter and then you just play as Miles?
Oh my God.
I don't think they would do that.
I don't think either. But how bold would it be?
They
Guys,
would be cool.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 co-op.
I can see it.
Dual Spider-Man.
I could see it. That's an angle for sure.
Spider-Man?
I mean, they already have the history with Fuse. They have that co-op pedigree at Insomniac.
Yeah, they
can
did
have
co-op
it.
in Sunset Overdrive too.
Oh, there we go. Maybe more relevant. I didn't know, and Leo, you were much more clued in being on the cover story and stuff. Had they revealed that you play as Miles at all before the game was out?
I don't know if it was like spoiled for me by somebody who wasn't supposed to say it, or if it
Okay.
was part of their press.
So
or
you
whatever.
weren't surprised by it, though?
Not really.
Okay.
Since I knew he was going to be a part of it, probably just from talking around the office, really more than anything. Mary
Right.
Jane, of course, definitely knew we were going to place her.
Right,
And
yeah,
people
that
were
one
going
I
to
knew
be very
for sure.
surprised by her.
Right.
Is what Brian said.
Yes, which I'm still waiting for, but we'll
Still
see.
waiting to be surprised, Brian.
Yeah, we'll see.
2 more acts.
Speaking of surprises, Matthew Davies says, I've actually found many surprises in Spider-Man PS4, so shut up, Leo. From the pacing of the game and to how a lot of these characters are portrayed, a lot of this was unexpected. I thought the coverage for the game released gave away a bit too much, but I'm finding the story quite surprising. Imagine the GI crew would probably have seen more of the game and general audience before its release, so I'm interested in how surprising you found the story overall. The Black Cat side quests are really cool as well. Another clever implementation of having her off-screen, ramping up the mystery and the world building even further. Did you have any surprises, Reese, so far in Act 1?
No.
Really?
I mean, maybe just the scene, the end mission that
Yes.
you do is kind of like, oh, this is kind of like a bigger, more intense thing.
Yes. Okay. So just the darkness of the end of Act 1 in general?
Yeah, maybe I'm just too desensitized or something, but I was like, is this... I didn't even realize until after the fact that's what Reiner was referring to
Right. Huh.
when he talked about the Call of Duty-esque moment.
Sure. The no Russian.
the no
equivalent.
Russian, that's his no
right. That
Russian.
was his reference point. Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd go quite that extreme, but like in retrospect, I'm like, oh, I guess that was pretty intense for a Spider-Man game.
Yeah, let's see. We have some thoughts on that. We have Nick, who says, overall, I think the game's absolutely brilliant, with the last half hour of Act 1 in particular blowing me away. I couldn't help but smile throughout the incredible helicopter set piece, especially the ending. The first-person web-slinging was so satisfying, and the image of Spider-Man perched on the helicopter at the end was, for lack of a better term, epic. What really amazed me, though, was how the game went from such a joyous and victorious mood to a soberingly grim mood in an instant. Reiner was right. The bombing was eerily reminiscent of No Russian from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I think the game handles this scenario amazingly well, even though we could tell Martin Lee's involvement from a mile away. I definitely didn't see the game getting this dark, and I can't wait to see how the whole experience progresses from here and how Miles and Peter's relationship evolves. Before I go, I leave you with some of the dumbest Spider-Man quips from Act 1.
Great.
Looks like I get my own private vengeance, which we've... It's really the slogan of the GI show at this point. And then as a rocket is flying towards him, he says, what is this, National Rocket Day? That is a good question. Yeah, I think I was also, as that sequence started, where I'm like, well, it's the demons using their abstract guns. I was expecting something a little bit more gory, but like the most jarring part of that scene for me, and maybe I'm cold and heartless, was when you're Miles crawling through the car and then like the body falls from like the passenger seat of the car. That's when I was like, oh, this is ratcheting it up to a slightly darker level than I was expecting, being a pessimist here.
Well, it seemed like Miles didn't react quite as I thought he should. He didn't seem as horrified
Okay.
as I thought he should.
It definitely got a little bit more graphic later on then with the demons even wiping out more and more folks along the way,
Right.
where it's like, yeah, I don't know if I'd go quite as far as Reiner did, but yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
totally could see why Reiner was like, oh, maybe don't play that one sequence around your kids.
Yeah, it's definitely it definitely I think does mark a tonal shift because up until this point it's been pretty fun and going. But like I don't think I guess I never really got the no Russian vibes just because that moment seems so much more intense in terms of
And you're controlling it, which
Yeah,
is it's just the
right.
huge
Right.
distinction
Yeah.
here. Yeah, but it is bizarre then to go from that sequence of, hey, here's a bunch of 9/11 imagery, and here's a sad funeral, and then like you're back to swinging around as Spider-Man right where we cut out for the game club, and it's like level up, new skill
Yeah.
points, just like this peg
Yeah,
old bombast on the screen. It's like, all right,
you should
Hey.
be really bumped. But hey, you got an experience point.
Go do a
Awesome.
mission for your friend Harry.
yeah, check this out. Boy, these pollutions are all over the place. Yeah.
I do like the way that they tie the time of day and the weather into kind of like helping build the atmosphere of where you're at in the story. Like when you get out of that mission, it is like a really bleak day and
Yeah.
it's raining.
Right.
I
was
really like how
cool.
they build the atmosphere throughout
Yeah.
the story with that.
John from Aliva, Wisconsin, says, what are your thoughts on how the day-night cycle is handled in the game? Spider-Man is amazing, pun intended, but my only real gripe so far is the day-night cycle being too tied to story missions. I found myself feeling the need to either fly through or put off doing main missions, either prolong or get through certain times of day. Would love the crew's feedback on this. Keep up the great work. I think it's interesting. I think it's worth it so far. I like that it's not just, it's not subtle. Like if a mission's set at night, it's referencing the fact that it's at night, which is my favorite mission so far of Spider-Man being like, I need some place to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
It seems relevant enough where I understand changing it for the time of day.
Yeah.
It is weird when you've been doing like a ton of side missions and then Spider-Man's like, man, I haven't slept since I brought down the Kingpin. You're like, holy crap. That feels like it would have been like
Yes.
a week ago in
Yeah.
your game. But I like it, honestly, because we have so many games that do normal day-night cycles. And I don't know that that's great for creating a world, but like narratively, it's kind of fun to have like the mood of your game set and be exactly what you want it to be.
Right.
it helps with pacing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a spoiler necessarily, but I know later on, like after you beat the game, you can choose whatever day-night time you want. If you want to run around at sunset, which is when New York is so beautiful, go ahead and do it. And so at that point, it's fine.
Pretty much every side mission has been loading me into nighttime, though. Have you guys
I've had a
noticed
couple
that?
of those where I'm like, this is weird. The first time it happens, you're like, this is weird. Why does it have to load this side mission? But it's
Right.
just like setting it to a certain time.
Yeah.
Which I wonder, is it fictionally? Like, so this could have happened at any point in Spider-Man's timeline, right?
But it did happen at night.
Well, because there's some, I would say most missions actually feel like there's this sense of urgency. Like, I should really get over here and do this thing. And so it's sort of fiction breaking to think that like Spider-Man would put off some of that stuff. Like, oh, I'm not going to go meet with Mary Jane right away because I'm going to do like, go catch 10 of my backpacks and catch this pigeon and,
Sure.
some of that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Speaking of loads, because it'll never be mentioned again, Dimitri Brown says, hello, Game Informer. I've been playing and enjoying the game in the last 24 hours. However, there's one thing about it that can't elude me. The open world. Now, I think the game is brilliantly pulled off with state-of-the-art cinematics, challenging yet fun, rewarding characters, lovely dialogue paired with a strong script, all leads to success, right? Well, yeah, but not if you're creating a huge and layered open world. One of my major gripes is that there are loads everywhere, and deceptive museum-esque buildings that are all for show and you can't enter. I don't know about loads everywhere. That seems like you can go from one side of New York City to the other just fine, right?
Have we all been playing on PS4 Pro?
No, I've based PlayStation.
I'm on a
Okay.
PlayStation as well.
And the loads haven't been bad?
No, the loads have
No.
been fine.
I mean, yeah, when you die, there's a little bit of a load, but it's okay. And then even like technically, I think during the big E3 original debut of like chasing the helicopter, it bogged a little bit frame rate wise, but not bad at all, really. Anyways, so let's see the loads, blah, blah, blah. I can't recount how many times I did a crime mission alerted about a break-in or side mission, which gave the impression I can trail a baddie inside of a building, but nope, I can't do it. It makes me wonder if Insomniac was using the game with aging technology. I don't know. It's clear there were limitations, restrictions they weren't able to overcome. This got in the way of what could have been a seamless and immersive New York City. Imagine instead of hitting a load screen when entering Feast, Peter's lab, apartment, or any other countless places we entered, you could just walk in and walk back out. It would have made a big difference exploring the world and increased its credibility.
He's got to change clothes, though. It would fade to black anyway, I feel like.
Yeah, you're right, unless there's like another little QuickTime event
quick
as you're putting on
load
your
or something.
I feel like
stuff.
the segments he mentions, going into Feast and stuff, I feel like those are not so frequent that I was ever like, okay, we got another loading screen. All right, let's keep going. I feel like they were intermittent enough that I guess I hardly even noticed them.
Well, I wonder if I haven't really done too much of this yet, but if you're just focusing on doing the side content, maybe there's a lot of loads that go through that.
Sure.
But during like the main story progression, I'm not noticing it too much at all.
When we were talking about the time changes, that is a weirdly long load, I feel like.
Yeah.
When it changes to night for a specific side mission.
Oh, okay.
But beyond that, I haven't noticed it.
Gotcha. Other big thoughts. Matthias from Berlin, Germany. Not exactly God's country, but whatever. Okay. The game is a mystery to me. Well, I often have problems with skill trees in games that focus so much on movement. I couldn't get into Infamous Second Son because moving through the city is too slow and boring for a long period of time. Okay. It doesn't bother me in Insomniac Spider-Man. Maybe it's because it feels fun from the get-go, or it's the fact that you soon get to upgrade wherever you want to upgrade first, but Spider-Man's skill tree feels encouraging and motivating. I also hate crafting, and while I still do not know a single game that is improved by crafting mechanics, Spider-Man's crafting elements at least don't feel too intrusive. Finally, I thought it was so over open-world maps littered with meaningless things to do, and yet, in Spider-Man, I keep doing all those mundane tasks, and I even enjoy it with the beautiful world and amazing locomotion. All in all, I think Spider-Man does not break any new ground like a God of War or Breath of the Wild did, but it does rule the old grounds, and that's just fine. I've kind of had that sensation too of like I'm not the biggest open world guy. It's like it feels like a gamey ass game at times, but that's fine.
It's definitely in the upper echelon of open world games because both the way you traverse and the combat are so much fun that any side mission in there is going to be fun to do.
Right. I think the side missions are sort of very basic, but I think as a sort of a way to keep you exploring that city, I think they work well enough. I wish a lot of the side missions were better. I think a lot of those stories I don't think really go anywhere interesting.
Do you like chasing the birds?
I don't. But I think I haven't done it too much.
yeah.
I've only done it once, and I kind of had a frustrating moment. But otherwise, I think like finding the backpacks, doing a lot of those towers. I think those are simple enough.
Yeah.
That it's just like the main crux of those side missions is not what you do when you get there. It's getting to them and being able to say, all right, there it is. I'm going to traverse over there, and that was the fun part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had that weird vibe of, okay, I'm trying to get through the main story because I'm right up to the wire for the game club here. I definitely want to dive into more side stuff later on, but it's like, okay, the map's filled with like the locations I have to take pictures of. I haven't even gotten, all the communications towers, all that stuff. And then it just keeps layering on more and more. And that map screen is filling up more and more. Like the Black Cat, it was like, okay, here's some more stuff to do around the side. And now here's all the hairy stuff. Like, okay, this map is really getting crowded to the point that it's freaking me out a little bit.
I kind of liked getting the backpacks and hearing his like, oh, here's this bill I forgot to pay 10 years ago, or like here's this thing from my first date or whatever with Mary Jane. And I like taking the photos of the stuff, but I think they should have left it at that. Like anything beyond that just feels like it's like cluttering things up a little bit too much.
But then at the same time, so many people would complain that there's nothing to do in the open world. I feel like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation.
Maybe it's just the way it, like the Black Cat stuff. What do you guys think of that? Like I don't think
very
that's
simple.
I haven't done any.
particularly interesting.
What is it?
I haven't done any.
Okay, you just have to scan the environment and try to find this little cat doll that the Black Cat left.
But the controller rumbles when you're like in the vicinity of it, and then you can see that something is glinting, and then you just zoom in. And take the picture.
So I guess I accidentally did that in one to like trigger it overall.
feels like they're missing something to make it an interesting minigame.
I do like the Harry's stations a lot.
Really?
Those are some of my favorite stuff in the
I
game.
did the one that I think you have to do where you have to like swing through the clouds, but what are the other ones like?
There's one where you have like this weird technology where you turn invisible, and you can only activate it. When you activate it, you can't web swing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, there are these things like floating in the air. You have to activate it near, but you can't be swinging. So you have to like launch yourself up in the air and then time it so you go invisible and go through that area.
Oh, that sounds cool.
And then you have to re-engage, and then you can swing again. And it's just like weird ways of using the swinging like that that I think is really smart to do.
It's
in a
weird
swinging game.
open world swinging missions, and they vary. There's some that I really hated, and there's some that are like, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So this is a weird mix.
Some are better than others, but it's cool that they're so
Like,
varied.
There's one where you have to like spray fish in the water, which is maybe the worst mission in the game.
I haven't done that one.
Spray fish. It is weird to see Spider-Man swim, by the way. But yeah.
You basically have to swing over water, and there's nothing to swing on when you're over water.
Yeah.
But you have to find pools of fish, and then you have to like spray this like chemical foam over them.
Huh. Okay. Sure.
Look forward to that one.
All right, why not? Well, I feel like you also, you guys are all saints, by the way, for stopping at the game club things. You guys are in the dark about what happens in the future. But have you guys just been doing all the side missions then? Just waiting
No.
for the next act to start?
I was also like you under the wire just because I didn't even start until Sunday because Kyle told me that the first act was only 2 to 3 hours long.
That's what everyone said. It's so much longer than that.
Yeah, it's way longer than 2 to 3 hours. So I just said, I'll just do it on a Sunday, knock it out real quick, and then go do side stuff. And then like it took me most of the day to do it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you're up till 4 in the morning.
That's right.
Grinding away. But you guys have done a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've done 100% up to the end of Act 3. So everything you can do up to this point, I've done.
Wait, Act 2.
Sorry, Act 1.
1.
Well,
Okay.
at the beginning of Act 2.
Yes.
But yeah, so there's like a lot of side stuff that you haven't even unlocked yet at this point, so I haven't done any of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've never gotten a challenge token. And
Right,
I have
I
tons
don't
of
know
things
what
I can
challenge
buy
tokens are.
with challenge tokens.
Oh, funny. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Where the backpacks, I think they're interesting. I love the little details in there. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to get into the lore, but just the dumb little things like, hey, here's a spider plushie. And then one of my favorite little bits was Spider-Man just saying, oh, yeah, they wanted to license out my likeness for spider plushies, but I couldn't get any money off of that license because I'd have to reveal my identity. It was like, I've never thought of that.
I've
That's
spent
so
an
crazy.
inordinate amount of time just swinging around the city thinking about like I bet if they like set up some sort of like anonymous way to pay me under the like I
Somebody
actually
would
thought
be able
about
to
that
figure it
for
out.
way longer than I probably should have.
Patreon.
Yeah,
That's right.
Well, actually, Mike from Rochester, New York says, hey, Ben and crew, fellow Spider Nuts. Loving the new game. I'm going to waste my email by making a joke and saying that Spider-Man should just start a Patreon page. Spidey saved my cat. Here's a $5.
That's that is 100% what they should do in the sequel.
Different tiers. I'll save your
Yeah.
cat. I'll save your daughter. I'll save you.
I'll release you from my prison.
Several tiers of spider insurance where it's like you can buy in and you pay a monthly fee, and if something bad happens to you, Spider-Man will save you.
You have to show your card when he swings by.
There's got to be some way for him to, being as moral as he wants to be, get some cash for these abilities.
Yeah, that would solve all of his problems.
Oh,
He
there's
just
gotta be,
superhero
yeah.
full time.
Is he ever wealthy in the comics at any point? Does he ever make some sick cash off this thing?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
there's
really?
Yeah, because he started his own like industry for a while. He had like Parker Industries, and so he became like a rich Tony Stark type person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He should just do that.
Well, and then he lost it all. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What are you going to do with Spider-Man?
Who can say?
Graham from London, that's in the United Kingdom.
Ooh.
For now. He says, hello, Game Informer.
Plugs it.
Weird.
I've played about 15 hours, and while clearly a very high quality production, perhaps I let hype get the best of me this time. I'm still enjoying it, but my main complaint is to do with story versus gameplay. While ambitious and interesting, key dramatic ideas feel at odds with gameplay. For example, my girlfriend and I agree that opening with the fall of Kingpin is an exciting idea, but despite being seasoned video game players, we both died multiple times during this tutorial stage on the normal difficulty. Do you guys have a tough time with that fight too?
The Kingpin one specifically? Yeah, I did.
too. I'm dying a lot in this game.
I think
It's
it was
surprisingly
because
hard.
It was the first time you're really challenged with the combat mechanics, and you're
Yeah.
still kind of learning the ropes. So I would be interested in going back now and seeing if I was still as bad at it. I think I would do pretty good.
Right. Although Danielle Alejandro Hernandez Gomez writes in and said that the game is too easy overall. He's playing on the amazing
Well, there-
difficulty. So
There
who
are
knows?
different difficulties, so you
That's
can-
true.
But yeah, I think there's a lot. I felt really clumsy, and I think that one of the reasons is because everything does more damage than I expected it to. So I think
Yes.
I think one of the expectations is like, oh, you're here to be cool. You're here to have fun. I wasn't sort of expecting like you have to take this gameplay seriously. You can't like sort of like it's not as mashy as like. Well, I mean, it's like, press square and then press triangle and then like dodge out of the way. But
I think even like it's not as mashy as the Arkham games, which is maybe what I was expecting, where you
Yeah.
can kind of get into a flow and not really worry too much about it.
I think, and at first I was like, oh, this is really. I don't know if I'm gonna. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like a whole game of this. But I think over time, as more options are introduced to combat, I think I ended up liking the combo system more and how sort of like, all right, I want this guy like. Here's a shield guy. I've knocked him into the air. I need to take them down like immediately, and sort of like the urgency that places on combat, I think actually ends up being a plus in its favor so far. But yes, definitely early on, I struggled a lot with like the different combo options and like, okay, here's how you take out this enemy. Here's sort of the counter.
And I know that it pushes you hard for like stay in the air. If you're on the ground, you're losing. Even they're like, I hope I don't get thrown up in the air. They have some sort of VO bar to let you know that like, hey, that's really what you need to get them. But that
I'm really
was,
weak in the air. Oxygen's bad for my skin.
It's so stupid and simplistic, but it was like learning not to just play it like an Arkham game. Otherwise, you just end up dodging and flipping all over the place, and you feel like,
And it's less fun.
yeah, and you feel like Sonic and Smash Brothers were like, I'm hitting them a lot, but I'm not taking anybody out. I don't know what I'm doing here.
The other thing that I don't like about the game is, or the combat in general, is that the dodge doesn't feel as useful until you figure out that you can dodge and then jump, and that's like an extra long dodge.
Okay.
But initially,
I've
I
been
feel
doing
like
that a lot.
that initial dodge doesn't like I felt like it should have a longer distance on it than it did, so I would dodge and still get hit a lot of the times.
Oh, interesting.
But then once I learned like you can dodge and then press X to jump, I thought that was really cool.
There's an upgrade too. I think it's an upgrade where you, if you dodge at the right time, you like web the guy who's attacking you, which I think is a really valuable thing.
Yeah, I learned that one. That was one of the first things I unlocked. The other thing that I find weird about the combat is just like how long you can keep those guys in the air. Like that, it is a Marvel versus Capcom-esque duration of just like, all right, 3 hits in the air, I hold square and swing at them again, and so now I have another 3-hit combo I can land, and then I can throw them into the other guy.
Right.
Like, it is outlandish how long you can keep those guys suspended in the air.
Have you guys embraced the gadgets as well?
Yeah, I don't think I've been using it as much as I should. It is a reminder too of like, oh yeah, I have that little spider drone. I haven't used that in combat yet. Little reminders that
Impact
I have that.
webbing is really cool.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's huge.
Which one?
Impact webbing, it's like you hit a guy, and if it's a smaller dude, less powerful guy, he'll like get webbed to the wall immediately. So it's a good way to
fly
take
way
out,
back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can upgrade it too, where I think you'd take out multiple guys.
I only just started using the gadgets when they give you the one that is basically a grenade. And that was like immediately after I was like, man, I could use some AoE options.
Yeah,
And then
that
immediately
was
they
good
give me a
too.
grenade. And then,
Aziz writes in on that front and says, it's such a small thing, but I love using that web bomb against a large group of thugs. Seeing half of them being helplessly stuck to walls makes me laugh every single time.
and I like, so the other thing I had with combat was that I just had, the button scheme seemed very counterintuitive to me at first because it was like, all right, you're pressing square and like, I feel like I should be zipping around when it's like, oh, triangle does this, but it like I felt like it should be R1. That was sort of my biggest thing is I kept mashing R1 instead of triangle to like,
How many times do I have to press this before the button changes?
Yeah, and it didn't. So that was part of my sort of early struggles to figure.
Yeah.
Like the button scheme seems really strange, but it once you get used to it, it works.
Yeah, Jerry from Gilbert is kind of echoing some thoughts here. Just curious how long it took you all to get a feel or a flow for combat. Early on, I found myself just using the dodge button, being used to Arkham, and ignoring the object, throw, web pull, other mobility options from Spider-Man. Once I got a feel for it, though, it became so much fun. Yeah, especially like the dodge off the wall, and then you attack off the wall. I feel like I need to be doing that more in particular. I don't know if you guys are doing a lot of that stuff.
I haven't done that one a lot just because, a lot. I haven't been near walls as much as I maybe should have.
Oh, really?
He's a wall crawler.
Yeah.
That's true.
I feel like
Not a lot of wall crawling though. Like it feels like you're always running up. You don't get to be like the iconic like I'm gonna crawl up the wall very slowly.
your
You're
way,
always
dude.
that's up to you, man. You can crawl if you
Yeah,
want.
the point where it's
I would
kinda-
love to take this wall slowly as opposed to running up it like an prototype.
I do get a real kick out of just like seeing if I have an objective marker far in the distance, of like I'm walking, and then just like slowly walking down the street, and it's so uncanny, like watching that, realizing like, wait, is Spider-Man kind of a dumb character? Does that suit look stupid? It looks awesome when you're swinging around, but just like slowly marching down the street, it's like, hey, this might be stupid.
You
after
get
all.
self-conscious when everybody
Yeah.
gets
It really
But
is.
you can point finger guns at anybody as you're walking down the street.
What is the button? I haven't done that
Square.
yet.
I think it's
just
square.
instead of
Just to
punching.
interact with them
Yeah,
overall.
it's not in combat. He'll just do that all the time.
There's an achievement for like doing it to 10 just pedestrians.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a pretty easy one to do. I had that same feeling too when I did the fast travel and you see him in the subway and you're
Yeah.
like, this is weird. And it's funny. I like it that they went that way, but it's also like this. If you saw that in real life, you'd be like, this is kind of stupid, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, it's a superhero.
Yeah.
But I love everybody shouting at him all the time. Like, they all want him to do different things. Everyone's very demanding, where it's like, yeah, I could see that. It's the equivalent of, celebrities and being harassed about selfies and stuff. People are like, hey, shoot a web, buddy. It's like, okay.
It's
all right,
basically
buddy.
that scene from Homecoming where the guy,
is.
he's like,
Do a
hey,
flip.
Spider Guy. Yeah, and he's, do a flip.
Yeah, it's the
And he
best
goes,
part of
yeah,
Homecoming.
when he
It's
does it.
amazing.
I like that there was one guy who was like, who didn't like me and was like, we don't need your kind around here. And I just passive aggressively said, hello, sir.
That's so much fun. John says, hello, folks. Spider-Man, eh, guys? Well, see you later. That's not true. He says, seriously, though, it's hard to nail down just one thing to talk about in the game. What keeps coming back to my mind, though, is the city and world and the interactions within it. I made it a point to get down to a street level early on to hang out with Spidey's adoring and even not so adoring public. Almost right away, a guy approached me with a prompt over his head, and after double high-fiving him, he yelled, how can you not love this guy? A few blocks away, I found some people who happily posed for a group selfie. It feels great to stop a robbery and turn around to see a group of appreciative New Yorkers cheering over Spidey's most recent victory. So there's mine. I'm looking forward to part 2. Keep on swinging. You bet, man. Here's a thought, Reeves. This is, I'm not a features editor at Game Informer, but you need to write this feature. I want to know the history of civilians, pedestrians, and open world games using their cell phones. Like, what was the first game to incorporate that? Because I love seeing it, and it rings very true, but it's like a default in open world modern games now, just to have like, mindlessly looking at your phone. Like, what year do you think that was?
I think Grand Theft Auto 4 was maybe one of the first ones.
Did 4?
I think 4 had cell
like that
phones,
was your
yeah.
whole menu
That was the
that
big
you used
thing.
to
Well,
D-pad.
you had it, but
Right.
did pedestrians as
I
well?
think
They would walk down
pedestrians
on
had
the
them,
street on phone calls and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. But like just checking stuff, not on the phone?
That was probably the evolution, though. There was probably like a
Yeah.
lot of pedestrians on cell phones.
Right.
And then it morphed to they're just looking at it.
Right. It's morphin' time. All right. Well, that feature is basically as good as done. If anybody wants to
transcribe,
transcribe,
yeah.
just what
we're
happened.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, some more combat stuff to mop up. Ben B says, I'm not someone who considers myself very good at challenging games. I mostly play it on easy mode because I see gaming as an escape from stress. But imagine my surprise when I boot up Spider-Man and die at least 3 times during the opening fight against Fisk on friendly mode. Pretty demoralizing. That said, whereas I started out dreading every combat situation, I was amazed how fluid the combat becomes once you've been given the freedom to experiment and practice for a few hours. Absolutely. The game definitely rewards you for mastering the dodge button, but being that combat can get out of hand just after 1 or 2 hits, do you think the game should have eased players into combat a little bit more slowly?
I started on normal and I was dying a lot, and I said, I'm not interested in seeing Spider-Man die. That's not why I'm playing this game.
Yeah, you want the power
You started
fantasy.
crying the first time you died.
Yeah, I thought he was really dead.
I said never again.
Spider-Man, talk to me.
But I switched to easy. I couldn't tell a difference, honestly. Easy, I
Really?
feel like easy mode could be, and maybe should be, a lot easier.
I completely agree. I'm playing on easy, and it's like I'm still dying a shocking degree, and I'm not the worst at games. Like there should be a super baby mode easy for people who want
Kid
the Spider-Man
mode.
experience. Yeah.
The one time I think my biggest struggle so far has been the shocker fight because he has a prompt where it's like, I'm going to do this big sort of AoE attack, and you get the dodge prompt, but the dodge isn't the thing that's going to get you out of it. You sort of have to, what I ended up doing is jumping and then zipping immediately. But then that's like, the game trains you so hard to say, like, anytime you see that indicator, press circle, and that's like the one time that doesn't actually, that's not the way you get out of that attack.
Okay.
Other than that, I feel like once I got through the Fisk fight, I've been doing okay. But yeah, even in random encounters, sometimes like you get hit with like a gun and you're like, oh man, this does way more damage.
I was chasing after a demon truck, just swinging down the street, getting closer, and they shot me to death out of the sky.
That shouldn't happen.
Oh no, Spider-Man!
Yeah.
Oh, good, we shot him to death.
Hey, with the shocker fight, I love that he calls him Herman so much, and I love that he calls Fisk Willie. Is that just a very agreed upon staple of Spider-Man? Is he always calls the villains by their first name or anything?
I don't know if I'd say always, but yeah,
Okay.
it happens.
Hey, Green.
Mr. G.
Hey, Gobby.
Yeah. On the groups of enemies front, Adam Poole says, though I'm really enjoying the game so far, it does have some flaws. For one thing, I think it's too easy to get overwhelmed by groups of enemies, resulting in death, which I experienced more than I assumed I would. Another big issue I've had is that even if you successfully dodge an attack, you might still get hit by the enemies, especially the big guys that can hit multiple times really fast. Yeah, those big guys suck.
Yeah.
Where it's like they're basically harder than Fisk, and it's just like some big fat guy in New York or like in Central Park that's just annihilating me. It's like,
You just got to
that
web
is-
them up.
That is
Yeah.
the reason I started using the sort of like dodge and then hop is because dodging out of the way of those guys is you're gonna get hit, and they have like a 3-hit combo basically. So if you're like do the thing that you're told to do, which is dodge, you're just gonna get mauled basically.
Right,
And
right.
you have to play against those guys very differently. Yeah. And then that's when I started using the impact web a little more.
I think Impact Web will sometimes like web them up to the point where you can punch them a bunch.
Yeah.
yeah.
But the guys I've had more trouble with, I think, are the guys with the energy whips. Have you guys run into
Yeah.
those guys much?
Like the
don't think
batons
so.
or
Whips?
They are demons who have like energy whips.
Oh, I don't think so.
no, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't
really?
seen those guys.
Yeah, they're pretty rough.
Okay. Huh. How'd you beat him?
With my fists.
Yeah, Spidey,
Yeah.
you're doing it, buddy. Flap, flap, flap. The only problem, Paul Arias, he says here, is the only problem I have with the Fisk hideouts and the QuickTime event with the helicopter. I had to run that about 4 times before I was able to get all the timing correct. As for the hideouts, I try to do all the stealth takedowns, but the game doesn't even make that possible for as soon as you get all the enemies in Phase 1, Phase 2 starts with everyone knowing you're there. How? Why? There are no alarms. No one saw me. How did they know I was there?
They've all got psychic vision, man. Like,
Yeah.
they're-
That bothered
friends
me
are-
for a couple times. I did a couple of hideouts before I realized like you just can't do it stealth. Like after the first
Oh,
round,
okay.
you
Yeah.
just fight.
Stealth is your opener, not sort of how you do the
It
entire
just feels
encounter
like
most
that
of the time.
first round is so easy, like combat wise. There's no like benefit to doing it stealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bummer because I like stealth in games generally, and like the stealth as Spider-Man could be kind of cool, but feels like they haven't fleshed it out enough.
There's that
Yeah.
one segment, like I think right after the Mary Jane segment or before, where I think it worked there, but I think in terms of like in the general open city, I don't think it works really
Right.
well.
There's no incentive to do it. I love stealth is one of my favorite genres of games, and there's just I just rarely do stealth in this game because there's no benefit.
Yeah, which is kind of a bummer.
What did you guys think about the Mary Jane stuff?
It was okay. Like I feel like if you're gonna implement Mary Jane in a game, that's kind of how you have to do it. Because it's not like she's gonna like get a gun and it turns into a first-person shooter.
That would be
like
surprising.
Blacklist.
Yeah, but I could easily do without those segments and just have those be cutscenes. Like I didn't really get much.
Well,
out
that's
of
actually interesting. James from Idaho Falls. It's a Mormon community, so everyone thinks it's God's country. That's nice. Said, could the extra playable characters' roles have been done in cutscenes just as easily? Personally, if I'm playing a superhero game, I don't want to be pulled out of the role of Spider-Man for some clunky stealth. Kyle has classically said he doesn't like playing multiple characters like in GTA 5, but mentioned that these were quick and not too intrusive. Yeah,
They seem to really want to have puzzles in this game,
yes.
Yeah.
which the Mary Jane sequences promote, and I'm not sold on why they're
Like that
there
statue
Yeah.
puzzles, like this is like a Resident Evil style puzzle.
Yeah.
It feels so odd.
I didn't mind the part where she was walking around looking at things and like taking photos.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
But the stealth parts are so like rigid and like they're one path. You just wait until the guy turns around.
Yeah.
I would say they're bad stealth scenes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is just, I think I don't know. It kind of conveys maybe a lack of confidence in like, I'd be fine looking around at stuff as Mary Jane. I don't need some gameplay hook for those sequences.
totally.
Just make them more of a little walking simulator.
when you're
Totally
looking
down
around
for
in that museum, that's totally more fun than it would be in a cutscene.
Right.
It
Oh, yeah.
definitely is benefited.
I think it's kind of cool that they're not just cutscenes, that there's something more going on, but the stealth implementation is not there.
It's not the appeal. And it speaks, I think, to a lot of things in this game where even the radio towers or a lot of the things when it has the mini games where it's like, how much more am I really getting out of it for having to line up these waves?
The
rather than
exact
just
thing you do in
holding
Arkham
down-
too. Yeah.
Yeah, just hold down square. Like I'm not feeling this puzzle more this way or anything like that.
And before listeners pointed out, there is an option to skip all the puzzles in the game.
Yes.
And where is
But
that option?
That's when you start a file. I think it tells you like, do you want to?
You can do it later in accessibility.
Oh, really?
You can skip that, and you can skip all the Q2Es, which is what I did.
Actually, yeah. So we have Brent from Capitola, California saying, not super far into the game just yet, but I thought I'd write in with how deeply appreciative I am of Insomniac's work with Spider-Man's impressive array of accessibility options. Being able to skip puzzles is a huge boon for me, and I know multiple people who dislike QuickTime events due to slower reaction times love they can simply turn them off. This, in addition to smaller but possibly even more helpful options like being able to hold a button instead of rapidly mashing it, are similar to God of War earlier this year, and they make it great. And Joe Holaska says, also appreciating the accessibility options and saying that he really appreciates the lack of difficulty-related trophies in the game.
Okay, so if there, I don't know if there are trophies for having that stuff on, but I hope they don't because that would be a really kind of like weird incentive thing.
I don't think they do.
But yeah, because I'm kind of thinking about turning off the puzzles. I turned off the QTEs and I'm a little torn on it because it just shows like they don't skip those scenes. It just sort of turns into slow-mo for a second, which is weird. So it'll just be like, I'm about to jump and then like slow motion for like a second and then it continues. I feel like those could have been cut out a little more seamlessly, but I'm totally fine with not having those in the game. But yeah, I think I might skip puzzles if there's no incentive to have them on because I'm not like, great, I solved this, conductor puzzle thing and I feel super good about myself now.
I wonder what happens if you go back to Otto's lab and go do the puzzles. Can you just press X and then it's complete?
Hey, Otto, look at this. Give me a raise here, buddy.
Hey, brilliant.
Tyler from Greenwood, Indiana says this game is crazy good. I pretty much love everything about it, especially the odd little mini games that you do in Octavius's lab. What do you guys think about the lab mini games? We love them. We love them. They're great.
I love how optional they are.
Well, I love that they're optional too, but actually like for all the like fluff that is in this game, I actually kind of like those mini games.
Okay.
The like pipe, they basically feel like BioShock pipe puzzles.
Right.
But
then there's also a
little bit
layer
more
of
complex.
math beyond that of like the plus and minus. Yeah.
I don't know. I was good at math in 5th grade.
You knew your pluses and minuses?
Yeah.
Ego plus 5.
So I like these puzzles.
Okay. What about, I guess for me, the biggest surprise playing it so far was Doc Ock being in there so early and so present. I'd imagine they kept it under wraps. I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I didn't know about it.
I
Even when
really
you're
like
swinging
his
to him,
character.
it just says like boss. Like they're still trying to hide it until you see him.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, he references him, I think, as Doc at some point before you see him. And it's like,
Doc!
okay, I only know one Doc in Spider-Man, and I like him.
Yeah,
Dr.
Brown.
Strange.
Well, I thought it was going to be Dr. Kurt Connors, actually, who's the lizard.
Oh, of course.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. That's a great call for sure.
I think he's like they do a really good job of painting him as like as a helpful friend to Peter. I am super concerned. I don't know if they're going to do it in this game or if it just ends up happening later, but I'm super concerned about his turn to villain. I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off because it feels like it would be such an enormous turn for that character.
Well, it seems like where they're building now is for him to use his abilities against Green Goblin, right?
Right.
Or whatever that's going to be. And then it's like the twist of then he also has to go up against Peter because Peter will probably try and stop him. Leo, you're squinting at me.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
If he ends up being like
but it's
hero,
like that, hey, F you, Osborn, I don't want to go work for you, you're shutting down my lab. Like, that's his motivation, I think, too.
Right. But like last we left off, he was pretty happy with it, but I'm sure there's going to be some like, oh, now they're trying to steal my tech or whatever for making guns or whatever. But I'd actually think it'd be way cooler if they kind of turned that canon on its head and it's like Dr. Octavius is like the co-op buddy in Spider-Man 2 or something.
Yes.
Like, if they turned him into a hero, I think that'd be super cool.
I would love that.
Right.
And that'd be a good arc for eventually maybe turning into a villain. If they had him be a hero first, that would be super into that.
I think one of the weakest moments so far, unless I'm not reading into it enough, is that moment where Spider-Man's working on the suit in his lab and then Doc Ock comes in. He's like, what you got there? Nothing. Classic Spider-Man stuff. And he's like, oh, I see what's happening here. You make the suits for Spider-Man. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Do you think he knows what he's doing, though? Like, he knows that Peter Parker's Spider-Man. He's just trying to, like, cushion it?
I feel
I've
like
thought
that's
about
what
that.
it
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of wonder if that's it. I
Yeah.
think that would make more sense than him, than that goofy assumption.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you make the suits. Yeah.
Right.
I think that he has some of the best writing, and I think the other moment that kind of surprised me in terms of writing was one of the last moments we see where Peter and Miles meet.
Yeah.
And like you expected for them to have a normal conversation, but like Miles kind of brought it's a little hostile just because Miles is kind of in a dark place at that point, and Peter's trying to be like, oh, I know how you no, you don't.
Yeah, and it's tough because like Peter can't say why he has this connection to his dad and all this stuff. So from Miles' point of view, it's like, who's this random asshole trying to talk to me and console me in some way?
It's a good interaction.
Oh, that's interesting too. I just assumed I went back to like the Uncle Ben stuff. I just assumed like, oh, I know how you feel because I lost a father figure.
Right. Okay, yeah. I think my little favorite bit of writing is like the MJ stuff. I think is cuter than I was expecting, and I also like how much of a mystery it is. Of like they're teasing of like why exactly they broke up. You don't exactly know how everything's played out there, but just like little moment there where MJ's like, hey, I don't know about this, Peter. Like, there's a lot of baggage here, and he's like, baggage can carry good things like lip balm, and he's like listing all the things. Like, that's a cute little line.
Good.
Yeah. On the auto front, Hazel Mohammed, friend of the show from Tampa, Florida, says, I enjoy that Insomniac decided to go with an ultimate Spider-Man, Peter Parker and Mary Jane, since I appreciated their banter and the fact that there's history there already. Made the relationship more believable and made me invested in seeing the plot unfurl. Hey, that was my argument, Hazel. As did Martin Lee and Otto Octavius. I'm not too familiar with Lee, other than what I've read in Dan Slott's comic run, but he came off as a sympathetic character, even when the end of Act 1 comes rushing up at you. You can see he's conflicted when he calls off his man at the end, but his ties to Norman Osborn seem to be the key factor that ultimately pushes him over the edge from his feast persona. Also, it can't be a coincidence that Otto also has ties to Osborn. I wouldn't be surprised if Lee's and Octavius' plots come together eventually later in the game. Now let's talk about the end of Act 1. Given that was New York City, I did not expect to see what amounted to a terrorist attack, given the anniversary of 9/11 is coming up soon. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Regardless, I felt uncomfortable when the debris settled and the camera smashes to black on Miles' face. But Miles, Peter, and Mary Jane have a reason to be in each other's orbit, and I look forward to seeing how that plays out, especially if Insomniac decides to play Miles as his ultimate incarnation as well. And here are some random thoughts from Hazel, if you're ready. I'm glad my OCD has me collect everything in sight, since one of the backpack collectibles actually explains why Peter has the funds to afford placing all his backpacks all over the city. It was an award from Wilson Fisk, apparently. I also appreciate that the collectibles filled in the blank that J. Jonah Jameson is no longer working at the Daily Bugle. When his podcast popped up, I kept on wondering how he had time to do that while also running a newspaper. Makes you wonder what happened, that he had to leave the Bugle. Maybe in the sequel? The Stan Lee cameo was the best cameo since it confirms MJ and Peter are the best couple in the Spider-Man mythos. What do you guys think of the Stan Lee cameo?
I was kind of wondering when it would come, actually.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it until last week on the podcast in that rapid fire thing that somebody emailed in. Reiner was kind of cagey about it. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess they would do that at some point. He was in the Lego games, for Christ's sake.
He was in, he was digitized into something else too, wasn't it?
Destiny 2.
Yeah, he was in Destiny 2. I think he was.
He and Paul
Cade.
McCartney did
right.
a whole thing. I actually was kind of wondering, like, because he's the owner of the Italian restaurant. I thought, wait, is Stanley Italian?
I don't
don't
know.
think
I thought
he
his face
is.
looked really good, but that was the jarring part too. Is like it was just a close up. So I was like, is he a janitor? Like, what is his role here? Just get a wide shot so I can see a uniform of some sort.
Is it a
it's like,
MODOK style?
I think he was.
Yeah,
I,
it's so
I think
odd.
that shot shows him behind the register. So I
Oh,
think
does it? I just
he
missed
does
it?
work or own that place.
Yeah.
okay, he does something there.
I was playing that game. My wife was in the room when I was playing it, and she was like, "What? He can't be in this." Like,
Gave
he's
that
not
game
a-
the finger.
He's a real person.
she
Like,
attacked
yeah.
the screen.
Yeah, so I had
He
to buy
actually
a new
did.
TV.
He actually does kind of stand out.
Oh, of course, he always does.
Because
yeah.
like I don't know that I like the way Peter looks. I think
I
his
am
face
with
looks
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the first instance in that opening cutscene was like, wait, is Peter kind of funky looking?
I think it's his hair.
It is something with his hair and his eyes. Whereas somebody wrote in saying that MJ looked gross. I was like, MJ looks fine to me. I think she looks
MJ
great.
looks way better than Peter does.
Yeah,
like,
She looks a
her
little
hair
like
looks
the
way.
Mass Effect Andromeda woman.
Oh, Mrs.
Female
Mass Effect
protagonist.
Andromeda. Yeah.
right.
Oh, the writer, lady writer.
I think Martin Lee looks like super good. I think
Yeah.
he's probably my favorite, like in terms of like, oh wow, you really did a good job of capturing this guy's face.
something with Peter's face though, and the
Yeah.
hair in particular, maybe pushing
kind
it
of
over
weird.
the edge.
I just
Maybe
wish
you're
he was
just
Tom
evil.
Holland.
oh,
What?
that
That's what
could
I'm
be.
saying.
On that Mr. Lee
Well,
front.
I thought of I think it was Big Hero 6 that Stan Lee was also in.
Oh, yes, you're right. He's the voice at the end, all that stuff. Hey, Ben, says Taylor from Houston, Texas, and the crew. I love Spider-Man so far, but my largest issue with the game is that it spoiled Mr. Lee as Mr. Negative in their ad campaign for the game. I think it would have been a much better surprise had they not ruined that fact. That is true, even though they changed the scene, because normally he was in the helicopter,
Yeah.
right? And like he flew through, but Mr. Lee wasn't in the helicopter this time.
Yeah.
Right.
He was just actually at like the bombing scene. is
I
where
thought
you see him
about
for the
that
first time.
during that scene. I was like, man, this scene is really cool, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And it's like I've seen this a couple times, and so it feels a little diminished because of that.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm like, man, it'd be really nice to go in not knowing that, like
Yeah.
not having seen some of the big moments in this game.
Well, what is the deal with Mr. Negative? Like, how popular is he?
He's a more recent character. He's pretty popular considering the fact that he was created pretty recently. I think.
Okay.
Man, somebody probably read in, but I think Dan Slott actually created him. So like he's that recent.
I love that. I think he's a smart addition because I don't know anything about his powers or what he's capable of or what his past in. There was like past his was like that slight hint about talking about how he had a tough childhood. And so I don't know if he's like a duality figure and he is actually good or if that was just all BS at the feast. I don't know what that is.
Do you
Well,
think he remains the main protagonist? I mean, antagonist?
That's a good question.
Or both.
Um,
Wink, wink.
I would hope so. I'd imagine. I would think so. I'll say yes. I will imagine him and then also
Yeah.
Doc Ock rising up, and that'll kind of be the big finale.
The weird thing is I can't imagine they're going to go for Green Goblin in this universe because Norman just looks way like that particular version of the character looks like I don't think he'd be good in a suit. Like I don't know that he could actually
if he's
fight.
more mechanical, maybe though.
Yeah.
I think knowing nothing, and again, we're only a couple hours into this game realistically, the fact that they teased Harry in such a big way, like he'll be coming home next year, it's like I'm sure they're saving all the Goblin stuff for the
Right.
sequel.
Yeah.
Well, what's crazy is like we're this far into the game and we haven't seen that many like big superhero fights. We've seen the Shocker.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Well,
I guess
Mr. Negative.
I guess Kingpin, yeah, too. But like, so every time a person pops up, I'm like, oh, I want to see him. I want to see Osborn fight as Green Goblin. Or I want to see like Dr. Octopus. I'd love to see that fight.
Yeah.
So
Here's my
First
theory that I
act,
just
Reed,
came up
first
with.
act.
Is
why?
that maybe Norman Osborn fights using Dr. Octopus's tech, and Dr. Octopus remains a scientist, and so that's how like I'm gonna become the super. I'm gonna make the
weird.
Green
Okay.
Goblin, and it's gonna be like sort of different mechanically, not just
That'd
a
be
guy on
cool.
a glider.
yeah.
That'd be fun.
Prove me wrong, internet.
At some point, Doc Ock becomes Spider-Man as well in the comics, right, Reese? Isn't there some
Yes.
weird stuff like that?
There's it's called Superior. He actually like takes over Peter Parker's body. This is how dumb comic books are. He like takes over his
Unless you
mind.
watch the
mean
video and then they're great.
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing. Obviously, that's why I read
Spectacular,
it.
yeah.
And so he calls himself the Superior Spider-Man. And so he like
That's super good.
he's willing to do. He has all of Spider-Man's powers, obviously, because he's in his body. But he's willing to like do things that Peter wouldn't, like be more ruthless.
So more of whatever a spider can.
Yeah, he's basically like, I'm gonna be you, but I'm gonna be you better than you ever were.
Right. That's a fun idea. Do that in the game. Wyatt writes in and says, I'm surprised. There's only been 2 boss fights in the first act so far, but he says that the pacing's really great, so he doesn't really mind. And he says, which villain are you most excited to fight with? Personally, I want to see how they handle a fight with Scorpion. Do you have any villains that you hope to see that haven't been revealed yet? I'd love to see Mysterio in the game. I would too. I'd be surprised if they squeeze that in.
Mysterio would be cool.
Venom and Carnage. And
I'd love to see. It'd be fun if they just throw in a couple like D-string, like super villains, like Stiltman or like Captain Boomerang or
they
something.
tease Scorpion a little bit. I think he'd be cool. Like in one of the side missions. I think.
Really? I missed that.
No, I think one of the JJ conversations mentions the Scorpion.
Okay, yeah.
Well, but I mean, we know that he's in the game, don't we?
He's not. Isn't he in the prison? Isn't he in
he's
the
in the
raft
prison.
when they show all the pictures?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. They do tease Venom a little bit, which Dusty W wrote in saying, so far my favorite little moment is the offhand mention of the black and white suit. The cop asked Spider-Man if he has one for the police ball, and his reaction kind of hinted that he already has it, and he's already fought with Venom. I guess I didn't get that vibe. I thought it was just like a cheeky little joke, but I didn't get the vibe that Peter Parker was hinting that he already fought with Venom.
Yeah, that's a little weird. Is starting that character off so far into his career, it feels like... Okay, so I'm guessing he hasn't fought the Green Goblin, which seems weird to not have done it for 8 years against Norman Osborn. Like
Right.
the fact that Norman Osborn is the mayor obviously
I think
hints
that's
that
kinda cool, though,
it's
yeah.
not him.
Or
so I'm
Doc Ock.
Yeah. I'm curious as to like which of the bad guys he's fought up until this point. Which I
Yeah.
think one of them might have been the Vulture because I think there's a mural at some point
That's
in
in the
city.
beginning.
I assume that the people who are in the raft got put there by him.
And there's like the rhino's horn and stuff. Yeah,
That's
so he
true.
made some reference like, oh, this guy, my back still hurts thinking about fighting him.
He charged into the wall like Fisk.
That
That's
fist
a good
boss
idea. I
fight-
should keep doing that.
yeah, the fist boss fight was fine. It was not as maybe amazing as
I hope they don't repeat it like Arkham did.
Well, that was the
Yeah.
thing is like the Shocker boss fight. The Shocker isn't like considered like one of his best villains or anything, but like
Yeah.
that fight was really cool. So
Oh,
I
you
wanna
like that
see-
one?
I thought it was cool.
Okay, someone hated chasing him down.
I love chasing him down.
Oh, really?
That was one of my favorite missions. I thought the way it like you were using the swinging to get after him, and then you got close enough, and it went seamlessly to cutscene, and then you popped right back out.
Yeah.
No matter where you tagged him in, you know.
Yeah.
I thought
think
that was really well done.
He was a really well done chase mission. I think the rest of those chase missions aren't as good.
I kind
Those
of like it.
pigeons
Just,
are not as cool as Shocker.
I haven't done the pigeon stuff yet, but I do like the idea of just I am just swinging around that city so much. I love focusing on speed every once in a while. Of like, okay, I'm normally not just trying to go as fast as possible, but I like the idea of like really trying to push myself and get caught up with them.
Yeah, me too.
What this might have been a random joke. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But at some point on the podcast, J. Jonah Jameson mentions like he's listing off all the villains that came about because of Spider-Man. And he's like, "There's a Nazi made of bees." Is that a real villain or is that just a random joke?
He was thinking of Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He was
I just
hardly
played
a
this
Nazi.
game, and who's the boss?
And I blame Spider-Man for Metal Gear Solid 3. Is that a thing?
That's not a thing that I'm aware of, but yes.
Okay.
Maybe somebody
And
should
you're
write
saying
in the
that under
podcast.
oath.
I'm saying Spider-Man is named David.
Well, clearly you haven't heard of the Nazi.
Yeah, not to be.
That's very good.
You should write comics, Serial.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. This is a twist for y'all. Josh from Mesa, Arizona writes in and says, Spider-Man has been spectacular so far. In fact, even amazing up to this point. Everyone's making those jokes.
But not
it's great.
spectacular.
I would definitely say it is the ultimate Spider-Man video game to date. There we go.
But there was the Ultimate Spider-Man.
Of course, the web slinging in this game is excellent. My personal favorite part of the game, and I'm sure this will get covered extensively, so there's nothing really original to add. Okay. One moment I would really like to highlight, I really loved, is after Peter gets evicted from his apartment and asks Aunt May for help, I was completely expecting her to invite him back to his old room in her house, but instead, she sends him to her office to sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
That moment really lit up my imagination. Why was her first thought to send Peter to her office instead of her house? Here are some theories.
I also thought that was weird, by the way.
Yep. She got sick and tired of her house, just randomly getting attacked by supervillains for no discernible reason. And after Peter left there was a sharp decline in such attacks, she's not risking taking him back. Or Aunt May knows how to party and Peter would cramp her style. I really hope this one's true and Peter accidentally crashes an Eyes Wide Shut party at Aunt May's house, even if the Sinister Six are present. Or she is in fact a supervillain herself and has converted Peter's old room into her sinister lair.
Or
Great
they didn't
theories.
want to model Aunt May's house.
Yes, I think it's much more of that.
Yeah.
They're like, well, they got the feast ready to go there, so
Yeah,
let's
feast
just
is
bring
right
her over
there.
the
That's a really interesting pick, though. I really hope something happens with that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
We don't know for like. I don't think Aunt May knows that Peter is Spider-Man.
No.
Does she? Okay.
No, I don't think so.
But she is Spider-Woman.
It's very clear.
Also, another example of very good hair in this game. Like one of the few rare examples of like, oh, her hair is actually pretty nice.
rare hair. The that is actually my favorite part of the game so far. Is just Peter
Aunt May's hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Peter going home and like he has the eviction notice and he like uses his super strength to like blast open the door. And I know it's a cutscene, so it's not the most interesting thing, but I loved the fusion of him having these real world problems, but then just a little bit using his spider powers. Like he's just stuck in the bureaucracy of trying to get the number off of this garbage can while he's talking
Yeah.
to Eddie at the warehouse. He's like, let me see where it is. And he's like flipping around, like kicking the trash can around just to see what the number is on the back and like trying to track that stuff down. I thought that was such a nice little quiet mission.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool too. There was part of me that was like, this garbage guy's being way too nice to him.
Oh yeah,
There's part of me
He
that was
does
like,
offer to buy him a pizza. So
it's true.
yeah, from Leo's.
That's right.
Ooh,
cute.
We'll see if something happens with that.
Leo's
in the second
canon
half.
now.
Wait, was Leo Stanley?
I think so.
I did the mocap.
Oh.
What's your guys' favorite part so far?
I like using the web shooters. The more I've used them in combat, the less I've been dying. And the way, now that I've gotten some upgrades and I have so many web shooter shots before they run out, and then it recharges so fast, I love just spraying everybody, swinging them around, doing the square triangle combo to throw them, just kick them right into a van.
Hell yeah.
And then by the time I'm done doing that, the web shooters are back. I think the way the webs work in the combat is perfectly done.
Yeah, I think once I got used to it, I think the combat ended up being like both sort of true to the character and kind of like compelling in its own way. Like once I started using some more of those gadgets, but I like that you can do tricks while you're swinging, and that it basically turns that game into this weirdo Tony Hawk kind of game where it's like, okay, I can probably do 3 tricks off this swing before I have to swing again.
Even
and
like
I think
NBA Street, I'm just like, there's no reason, but just keep doing it.
There was also
as much
one
as
time
possible.
where I fell low enough to the ground. I did a trick, and I ended up like landing on the ground but not changing my animation. So here's this animation of him sort of like falling across the street for like 3 seconds before I actually landed.
Paul Swears writes in on that topic a little bit. He says, when you're web swimming, I really love it when Spidey will sometimes catch himself off balance and mid-swing if he doesn't have a good hold on what you're stuck to with the web.
Oh,
There's just a little like stumbling animation as he's trying to get it down, which I don't think I've noticed, but that's a cool idea if it's in there.
I don't think I'll ever get sick of just like using that impact webbing to like web a dude against a wall like instantly. That's so satisfying.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Let's see. Kevin Jennison of Lindstrom, Minnesota, and also Joe Williams both wrote in appreciating the feast sequence. And just anytime you're in there and talking about how it does a good job of representing homeless people without being cliched and over the top in any way. Which is like, yeah. Leo, you're wincing.
Yeah, that was good. The dove stuff, the catching the pigeons, has felt a little cliche presentation of a homeless person.
Oh, I haven't seen
Kindly
this yet, so-
old homeless man on the rooftop. Oh, I lost my pigeons.
It's Home Alone 2.
Remind me of my wife. Yeah.
It starts
Okay.
out as a side mission, so you got to go do a side mission, and that unlocks all the pigeons.
Gotcha. Jared says, hello, club. As a huge fan of Sunset Overdrive, I've spent many hours in the game just swinging from landmark to landmark and taking pictures because of how much fun I'm having with the movement system. One landmark in particular piqued my interest, however, the Avengers Tower. After taking a picture of the tower, Peter says something along the lines of, it's too bad the Avengers are never around. I think they're on the West Coast or something. I'm not very knowledgeable on Marvel comics, so hopefully someone's a little bit more comic book savvy can help me out. Is this line of dialogue a reference to a specific event in the Marvel Universe? Is it possible that it alludes to Square Enix Avengers game from Crystal Dynamics, which is on the West Coast?
Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
I think that's what it is. I think that's what they're going for.
So actually, there's a comic called West Coast Avengers.
Yeah, but still, I really am sticking with my Crystal D theory. Oh, really?
Yeah. It was, man, somebody's going to write in, I'm sure, but I think it started in the 80s. Hawkeye founded a West Coast team because they wanted to, like, have, like, multiple issues. They're like, we should make more Avengers comics. So they created a West Coast team.
And who better than Hawkeye to lead it all?
They recently brought it back.
Oh, okay. Oh, so maybe that is a reference to that then.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is.
Because this is a little bit weird of like, boy, there's crime all over this city, and Spider-Man's really the only superhero running around. Like, what is Doctor Strange doing in there?
Well, yeah, because there's Sanctum's there, and you can take a picture of it.
Yeah, and he says like, something's a little bit strange about this building.
And it's also like, oh, where's Daredevil, or where's any of the other New York-based superheroes?
Right, I understand. But is a part of you guys hoping that eventually they'll get to teasing more Marvel stuff, or do you want it to be completely Spider-Man?
I think it'd be fun to like see another character rather than just the towers.
Yeah.
Like, where's Four Freedoms Plaza too? Like, I kept expecting that, but apparently it's like the Fantastic Four building. Like, where's that one?
Oh, it's the Baxter Building?
The Baxter Building.
I
Like,
think it's
that
in
used
there,
to
isn't
be
it?
like the big. Is it? Because I
don't
missed
know.
it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I assume it would be.
Okay.
I can totally see like a crossover being sort of like the ending stinger of like right at the end, post credits, like, oh, like Spider-Man's doing something and here's Iron Man. He's like, hey, Peter,
But that's such a
Buy the
slippery
DLC.
It's such a slippery slope, and especially with Square having that deal for the Avengers games and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if they did it, maybe it would be more of the New York-based stuff and less the
Marvel
Avengers
Knights,
stuff.
yeah.
It would be like, hey, let's get the Defenders in there or something like that. Because
Good question.
they do have the Rand Tower from Iron
Yeah.
Fist in there. Apparently, it's where the Trump Tower is. They like replaced Trump
Oh,
Tower
really?
with Rand Tower.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Really makes you think about politics.
I wish I could replace.
whoa,
Oh.
is this game woke, you guys?
Yeah.
Alias Investigations is also in there.
Oh, really? Okay. Tommy Benson says, I love the location and graffiti Easter eggs throughout New York City. These are fun to see as a Marvel Comics fan. My absolute favorite detail, though, is how amazing it is that you can see inside the majority of office windows from most skyscrapers throughout New York. Have you guys done that? Have you looked in the windows?
Yeah.
Yeah, they repeat kind of a lot.
They
if
do,
you
but
pay
it's
too
still-
much attention, but that's still a cool effect.
Yeah, it's amazing that they went for that level of detail, even if it is a cheat in some ways.
Yeah, and there was one window that basically is 2 different apartments depending on which side you're on. So it'll be like this thing with an elevator or like someone's apartment, depending on
weird.
which side of the building you're on.
Doctor Strange is a mystical creature.
Some of them look pretty good, and then some of them are just like, you can tell it's just an art asset.
A flat,
It's like
flat
simple,
texture on a wall.
Right. Jacob Geller, he says, hello, everyone. Your third favorite previous intern here. Welcome. Let's talk about the city. Because we haven't really talked about it yet. Because holy crap, what a city. This is a weird comparison, but I haven't felt so awed by a game world since Breath of the Wild. Like in Zelda, there are times that I've turned a corner, unexpectedly run into an enormous vista, and literally gasped. The variety of buildings, the reflections in the windows, the constant street traffic. Sometimes I make myself walk around the city just to appreciate all the detail Insomniac put into every block. I saw a tweet that said something like, Spider-Man really is useless outside of New York. LMAO. That guy ain't swinging off crap in Dallas, Texas. And this game really gets that relationship. Spider-Man is the hero born of New York. He needs the city as much as the city needs him. I couldn't be happier. The game just nails it.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Jacob. Miss you.
Yeah, for sure. The just think about just the legal nightmare of trying to recreate New York City and all the approvals you'd have to go, like what you can create and recreate versus, what you have to make kind of abstract. What buildings are in the public domain? How does that work to have like Rockefeller Center in there?
I don't know. Is there anything that's like, you cannot recreate this physical
I assume
location?
so. I assume
I don't know
that's
how
an
that works
issue.
either, but that'd be an
Yeah.
interesting feature.
Did you talk to him at all about that, Leo, on the cover story trip? So you just like avoided the interesting questions, or
I never considered that a building could be copyrighted because
did
you
you do any
can go
work?
to it. It's right there.
Yeah, you think it'd be public domain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's probably some weird legal naming things, or even when you have to come up with the names for hundreds of different stores, trying to make sure that no one else has taken them. That's gotta be
Yeah.
so hard.
I also like, speaking of stores, I like the way the combat shifts perspective when you're inside of a store and fighting people.
Yeah,
the
isn't
fixed
that
camera.
strange?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
To his point, though, like, it is fun walking around. What I've enjoyed walking around New York City is like looking at the billboards and like the ads for stuff. And there's like ads for movies, and I'm like, man, I want to know what that movie's about. Like, what is that movie like
Yeah.
in fiction?
Yeah, Insomniac, make the movie. Don't be lazy. Come on, guys.
Guys,
Lazy
where
devs,
is
yeah.
the movie?
Here's some random thoughts from Nathan Keeling. He says, as always, I took notes as I played, so pick and choose whatever you want. We'll read them all, sir. He says, I really like the amount of work they put into the Spidey forum/Twitter. That's in the menus. They did a great job of making it look like something you would see today. There's even an idiot defending Fisk after he gets arrested. The best account is JJ in Space, fake JJJ News, and Wallcrawler's response to Screwball. Yeah, do you guys like those little tweet pop-ups, all that stuff?
I haven't seen that many of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know some a ton either.
Yeah, I haven't really read them, but I appreciate they're there. There's a lot of extra writing they had to do.
It is one of those things where I noticed, I'm like, oh, Spider-Man's on Twitter as like Spider-Man or whatever. And I'm like, some crazy hacker would be able to track that back to Peter Parker somehow, right? Some guy would
Yeah.
like, track that back to like, you created this account on this computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait a minute. This
Wait
is a bunch
a
of made-up
minute.
nonsense.
They figured out who Drill was, so
Yeah.
they could figure out who Spider-Man
Drill
was.
is our modern Spider-Man for sure.
Exactly.
Nathan says the best landmarks in the game are obviously Avenger Tower and Wakanda Embassy, which I haven't seen yet, but that's fun. He says they laughed out loud at the Stan Lee cameo. Glitches. He said he found a glitch where getting interrupted by police radio when near a police tower made it not possible to sync with it. That's interesting.
Oh, weird.
I fixed it by doing another activity and reloading the last checkpoint after that. Another glitch when trying to do Harry's lightning mission. Dying breaks the mission and forced me to end and restart the mission. And he is very, very disappointed that Doc Ock finds Peter with the Spider-Man suit, and jumps to, oh, you're a guy that works for the guy. Yeah, that's true. And Nathan was the one that didn't think Mary Jane's model looked great, but I think you're wrong there, Nathan.
Yeah, come on.
It's all
Nathan.
good.
I love her.
You guys want the most specific piece of feedback here?
Yes.
This is from Matthew Thies from Blacksburg, Virginia. Says, Dear Game Informer Show, I just finished playing Spider-Man for 8 hours straight, only stopping when I reached the end of Act 1. Suffice it to say, I'm enjoying my time with it. The web swinging feels great. The attention to detail in the city is astonishing. J. Jonah Jameson's podcast always merits a laugh. I found myself like stopping whatever I'm doing just to make sure I don't accidentally skip any of that podcast. I think it's really fun too.
Yeah.
However, the game has one glaring flaw. The prompt that appears whenever you're supposed to interact with an item, when it loads, it looks like a spinning circle. So my idiot brain always thinks, well, better press the circle button. But no, when it finally does load, it is revealed you're supposed to press triangle. You'd think I would learn after the first few times, but I'm always tricked by seeing a circle on screen. The game explains the rest of its complicated UI so well, but just fumbles with this one little thing. Absolute madness.
He is 100% correct. I had that same exact
Oh,
issue.
really? Wow, that's crazy.
That's
also,
surprising.
somebody else wrote in talking about just like the opening of the game, how much they throw at you. And I thought it was a lot. It was a lot of tutorials. I mean, they're not too in your face, but it's like there was a surprising amount of different move sets between the swinging and then the opening fights, where it's like, oh, there's a lot to digest here out of the gate.
If I wasn't paying attention to the game so much ahead of its launch, I feel like I would just not know about certain things you can do.
Yeah.
Because like running on the wall, holding circles so you go around the corner, it only tells you that in like a tooltip on the loading screen.
Right.
It's super easy to miss that.
I don't think
feature.
I've been doing that at all. That's really helpful. Okay. Okay, Leo. Whatever. Nate McClellan says, did any of you
sorry.
guys read the novel that takes place before the events of the game? It's really great, but I'm a bit bummed the game hasn't made mention of stuff that happens in the novel. I didn't know this novel existed.
Me neither.
I won't spoil anything from the book, but there's some stuff that happens with the shocker in the novel, but it isn't even hinted at in the game. Granted, the novel takes place months before the game opens up, but still. There's also a side mission that involves stopping some people from robbing a casino, and when you find the apartment they're in, the heist leader is named Nico, and he talks of hiring his brother's son, Roman, to help him. I thought that was a pretty
that's
cool
funny.
Easter egg. Yeah.
Is he talking about the graphic novel Amazing Spider-Man?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I skipped that word. Yeah, he's talking about the graphic
okay.
novel Amazing Spider-Man. Also, Austin from Howard, Indiana says, hey, GI guys, only an hour or so in, I just had to write it. Long live Spider Cop. I don't know why it's such a funny segment of dialogue to me. I hope he comes back.
I like the implication that he's been doing that for years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he's finally retiring
Yeah,
it.
I thought that was fine. I thought that was funny enough. I was waiting for it to get grading, but it's like, okay, it's okay. It's pretty quick.
I thought it was funny at first, and I thought it overstayed as well.
But when the joke is that it is super not funny and Yuri's being annoyed by it,
and
like
you
it kind of
keep going. Yeah.
By the way, this Yuri character, I was shocked right out of the gate because I'm like, Yuri, why do I remember that? It's like, oh, that's right, the voice actor behind Spider-Man, his name is Yuri, and then the main,
interesting.
or the first character you meet in the game is also Yuri. Does Yuri have a big presence in the comics?
Somewhat. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
she's
don't
always
know.
just the Commissioner Gordon?
I wouldn't say it's not as big a. I wouldn't say it's as big a presence as like Commissioner Gordon has.
Yeah.
And she hasn't been around nearly as long.
But it is just that role in the comics as well?
Kind of the same role, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Also, like with Batman, like his relationship to the police is so like interesting and like sometimes tight. With Spider-Man, I don't feel like he needs to have a relationship with the police, and like they've never played that up quite to the same extent.
He just needs a scanner, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I liked that
I
early
always
on,
feel it's super weird when he's standing there and talking to police in uniform.
because that's not a thing Spider-Man does a lot.
It just feels weird to me, even when it does happen. It happens in comics, sure. But
Okay. The I liked is early on when you're going up against some enemies and the police are there. The police go, Spider-Man's here. He's gonna mess everything up. And then Spider-Man's like, hey, thanks for the confidence, guys. Like I like that dynamic instead of just being like, huzzah, Spider-Man. It's like, oh god, this asshole's back. Like,
no, what are you gonna do?
It's also
Yeah.
weird because I remember there was a line where he said, "Oh, I haven't been on. I've been on worse. I've been in a worse relationship with the police before," which implies that it's better than it has been.
Okay.
So maybe like that was sort of like, he's pretty tight with the police. And then there's a side mission where you can do where you're sort of trying to sort of free this guy from getting blackmailed for a crime he didn't commit.
Okay.
And at some point, towards the end of the quest, he says like, "Oh, I know someone on the force who can help you out." And I'm guessing it's Yuri, but like,
Yeah.
it definitely feels like they're kind of shifting between like police like Peter and they don't, which is like a weird.
Yuri
thing.
does, but maybe the rest are kind of annoyed
Yeah,
by him. Is that the
maybe.
dynamic? Yeah.
With Osborn as the mayor, it'd be interesting if they play that up here in the next part of the game. Like he starts putting pressure on them or something to like catch Spider-Man or do something about that.
I don't
Spider-Man
think they
guy.
would let you kill police or at least like attack police in a Spider-Man game.
No,
No.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like the police are coming after you and you're trying to run or
Sure.
do something. you
One
know?
funny thing is when you're like fighting and the police are on your side.
Yeah.
I noticed they were using like taser bolts, like they were doing non-lethal attacks on the enemies to support you, and it's
Oh,
like, yeah, this
funny.
game feels very positive on police.
Yeah.
It thinks they're doing a good job.
Spider-Man's
Hey, okay with us? No problem here.
a
Moving
cop.
on. Yeah.
Spider Cop.
Any other big thoughts?
I am not as sort of blown away by it as I think a lot of other people are, but I feel like this is I really like the way this game channels Spider-Man, but like I'm not into the game like 100%, but
It just feels too standard open world for you?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I wish it were a better game, but I feel like it's hard to like those chase missions that I don't like. Those feel like super a part of what Spider-Man is and does.
Okay.
But like I'm still kind of struggling with the idea of like this is a really good Spider-Man game, but I wish it were a better designed game overall.
I hear you. I like just the cultural moment. I think this game is going to sell 1 gajillion units, and it seems like everybody in the world is playing it. But I love when the gaming culture rallies around one thing that we all kind of know and kind of already love. Like, you're just referencing Reeves. There have been so many Spider games, some not even that long ago, but this one is just like, no, now I love Spider-Man again. Now I'm excited to talk about Spider-Man. It feels like everybody on Twitter, everybody in the gaming universe was all of a sudden like, you know what's awesome? Chili. I don't need it that often, but let's all celebrate chili.
This is the year of chili.
It just feels like a celebration of something we've all lived with forever. You know?
Chili's back.
I feel like the other time this has happened this year, I think, is with Dragon Ball. Like, to a slightly smaller extent, but I definitely feel like a lot of people, it's like, you know what? This game reminded me that Dragon Ball is pretty cool.
Yes.
And everyone just kind of like suddenly Dragon Ball is cool again because of this game.
And Spider-Man, everybody loves again, no questions asked because of this one game.
Coolest fictional character.
Which is also very funny, real quick. It's funny that like legally, what they call it, Marvel's Spider-Man is the official name of the game. But I love that everyone just calls it Insomniac Spider-Man. It's like this weird flip of like, just leave the Marvel out completely. We'll add a word though, and it'll be the word you won't want, Marvel. Yeah.
Right. So this game will do really, really well, and it will spawn more superhero games, right? Like a new wave?
I hope so.
Well, I mean, did the Arkham games spawn a new wave of hero?
I don't know about that.
I feel like the Arkham games are harder to... I think it inspired a lot of other games to be sort of influenced by them, but I feel like those games specifically in terms of... I don't think it works for other superheroes, whereas this feels a little bit more flexible. Although, like, Spider-Man's sort of web swinging is not something that a lot of other characters can do, obviously.
Right.
But I feel like this sort of format feels a little bit easier to ape with other heroes.
Well, I think the only thing with that is, like, there's only so many characters that have cracked to the Spider-Man tier. You know, there's Batman, there's Superman, maybe Wonder Woman.
I think Iron Man can totally work that way.
Yeah, maybe Iron Man now at this point. But, like, you can't do this with Daredevil because... I mean, I think the game would still be fun if it was done well, but like Daredevil,
Quiet Man, but yeah,
people don't love Daredevil like they love Spider-Man, right?
Yeah,
to the same universal appeal.
Yeah,
I think there's only a select number of characters you could do that with.
Yes. Sure.
So I don't think we'll have a huge
big budget
explosion.
production. Yeah,
I think you're right,
creatively, I think you're totally right that it'd be hard to adapt that with many other superheroes. But I mean, money talks. You know what I'm talking about?
Speaking of which, like, it's gotta be so
man.
bizarre. Think about Insomniac's still an independent studio. Imagine how much they increased their worth to Sony buying them. Like, clearly, Sony could have bought them years and years ago. So clearly, Ted Price, everybody else in Insomniac, is not interested in being bought. But like, with the success of this game, I'm sure Sony's a little bit nervous about like, we didn't make it. Technically, it's a developer we don't own.
Right.
But like, what? That asking price must have gone up by 4 times as much.
At
I'll
least.
just throw it out there. It's such a fun idea to think about.
To think back when they made Fuse, like what's the difference?
Right.
Between Fuse
How much
and
would
this?
Sony have paid then versus now? Yeah, but oh god, I wouldn't be surprised in the next 6 months if Sony bought them.
How does this Microsoft
just to try and lock that down.
Their exclusive was like Sunset Overdrive, which
Right.
is fine, but like nowhere near this level. Then they make an exclusive for Sony. It's like
Well, I remember
incredibly
there was a big
popular.
cultural zeitgeist where everyone was talking about how much they loved Sunsets when that game
Yeah.
came out. Everyone was really rallying around this thing we all knew for so long.
Everyone installed
Sunset.
Overdrive into their cars.
I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention real quick the music. I think the main theme is so good. I think it's so important for a game like this to have an amazing main theme. And just, it reminds me of like Lego Batman 2, where every time you play as Superman and you fly off the ground even an inch, it'll start playing the John Williams theme, which never really got old. And then in this game, like the second you start swinging, it'll just start the strings rolling again. And it's so satisfying and so sweet.
Really great music.
Yeah. Especially just in that opening area, like that mission where I just avoided things as much as possible. Just having that music just hit all out of the gate, just with that main theme driving it home. So sweet. Hey, everybody, that's a game club. Part 1.
That's right. Nobody wrote in saying they didn't like the game.
Somebody wrote in, I think it was Nick from Atlanta, I remember this, friend of the show, saying that he expected to like it more. Yeah. No one hates it.
Yeah, I really do like the game. I just don't like. It'll probably
watch
be
him backpedal now.
Well, I can see it sort of like cracking my top. It'll probably be on my top 10 list.
Oh
It'll
yeah,
probably be like
I'd be
bottom
surprised
half.
if it isn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's sort of world.
I will say I let myself get too hyped, probably.
Yes, that's
It's
fair.
a very good game, but it's not like life changing
Yeah.
the way I kind
Well,
of
you've
thought it
only
would
played
be.
a third of it.
You're right.
Right,
true.
right. 2/3 of your life left as well. Okay, so the next episode. Do you guys want to do it next episode on the 20th? Can we get through Act 2 by then?
Heck yeah.
How long is that, a week?
We're going to go right up
Yeah.
till he meets Superman.
Yeah.
Wait, that's 2 weeks. Or is it?
I don't
No,
think
that's a
so.
week. I don't know
that's a
math.
week. Yeah,
Look,
so it's
I'm not
September
good at math.
20th,
What did
I
I
believe, will
say?
be the next episode
Yeah.
of the
You're
GI
right.
Game Club. And so where you'll stop then, it's very easy. End of Act 2. There should be a trophy to remind you of that. Or it is the last E3 demo involving the prison. So when you're done with the prison, that is the end of Act 2. So stop there. Thank God that these E3 demos as the end of the acts.
Yeah, and the Act 3 finale as well, we all saw at E3.
Everybody remembers E3 2012.
Where
They
he meets
hinted at it
Goku.
very subtly. So that's the end of Act 2. So please write in with specific thoughts, the tiny details. That's what we want. Everything good like that. But I love the big overview stuff as well. But podcast@GameInformer.com. Please write in. Let's have some fun. And that's it for this overall episode of the Game Informer Show. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Be sure to tune in next Thursday. We'll have a new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.